Chapter 405. Eris, you're actually able to suppress Eris. Looks like your strength has exceeded my expectations. However, Eris isn't that easy to deal with. The Lord of the Underworld was surprised that Eris was being suppressed. However, he quickly regained his composure and flicked his finger. A golden light shot out from the Lord of the Underworld's finger and entered Eris' back. Roar! In the blink of an eye, Eris' body shone with a dazzling golden light. His body, which was originally 10 meters tall, expanded once again to 15 meters tall. Eris roared at the sky and waved his arms that were as thick as a small mountain. He directly tore apart the water pythons that coiled around his body, turning them into a dense curtain of rain that fell to the ground. Damn it! Eris' strength has increased again. Feng Long's expression changed slightly when he saw all the water pythons being torn apart by Eris. He stomped his foot again, and the waves around him formed an even larger number of water pythons. They all rushed towards Eris in an attempt to trap him. At the same time, Feng Long stepped on the waves and tightened his grip on the halberd. Countless waves turned into large halberds that filled the sky and pierced towards Eris' vital points. Boom! At this moment, Eris' aura was like a rainbow. He took a step forward and punched out, shattering the densely packed water pythons into countless pieces. He stomped his huge foot on the ground and charged towards Feng Long, completely ignoring the large halberds that filled the sky. Clang! Clang! Countless halberds struck Eris' body and created countless sparks. However, they didn't leave a single mark on his body. His body is even more resilient than before. At this moment, Feng Long's expression finally changed. Eris' strength had already exceeded his expectations. He was probably comparable to a cultivator at the advanced stage of the King Realm. Feng Long was only at the intermediate stage of the King Realm. Even if he used the halberd of the stormy waves, his strength would only be comparable to Eris. However, Eris had an extremely abnormal body while he didn't. In this aspect, he was at a great disadvantage. Let's go all out. I don't believe I can't kill Eris. A trace of ruthlessness flashed through Feng Long's eyes. He didn't back down and charged forward with his halberd. At the same time, he continuously used the halberd of the stormy waves to collide with Eris. Boom! Boom! An ear-piercing rumble resounded within the metal room. The shock waves from the battle caused Zhou Li and the others to retreat repeatedly. They didn't dare approach at all. A battle between ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators wasn't something they could interfere in. Once they did, they would be courting death. Relying on his powerful body, Alice attacked without any regard for his life. Even when Feng Long's halberd struck his body, it was unable to break through Alyssa's powerful body. It only left a white mark on his body. In just an instant, Feng Long was completely at a disadvantage. He could only helplessly use the halberd of stormy waves to constantly defend against Alyssa's attacks. He was barely able to hold on. This Alyssa's physical body is too abnormal. Big Brother Feng is completely suppressed. What should we do now? Zhou Li's pretty face revealed a hint of anxiety as she asked in a panic. The other 3 team members lowered their heads slightly when they heard this. They didn't say anything as they looked at each other. They were well aware of their own abilities. If they interfered now, they would definitely die. After all, they weren't ultimate Emperor Realm experts. Boom! In the air, Alice suddenly flipped his hands outwards and directly tore through the endless waves that were blocking his path. Then, he suddenly threw a punch towards Feng Long's head. Feng Long's movement technique was extremely nimble. He leaned to the side and dodged Alyssa's punch. At the same time, he used the waves around him to conceal his figure, so Alice couldn't tell where his real body was. Kid, weren't you full of confidence in the beginning? You even arrogantly declared that you would kill me. Why have you become a coward now? If you're so afraid of my treasures, what right do you have to challenge me? The Lord of the Underworld said impatiently from his throne. He hated Feng Long's hiding and dodging style of battle. Feng Long, who was hidden in the waves, didn't utter a word. He only focused on dodging Alyssa's attack. In reality, Feng Long was already feeling bitter inside. He originally thought that after breaking through to the ultimate Emperor realm, he would definitely be able to deal with the Lord of the Underworld. However, he never imagined that the Lord of the Underworld's strength would exceed his expectations. Just Alyssa, who had been sent by the Lord of the Underworld, was already enough to tire him out. If the Lord of the Underworld was even stronger, wouldn't he be no match for him at all? You're hiding like a mouse. How boring! Looks like I'll have to drag you out. The Lord of the Underworld laughed coldly. He suddenly squeezed his right hand and an invisible force instantly entered the endless waves. Soon after, Feng Long, who was in the depths of the waves, was shocked to discover that the flowing waves around him were actually dispersing without his control. In the end, they all froze into ice. How is this guy so strong? He actually broke through my stormy waves halberd so easily? The shock in Feng Long's eyes reached its peak when he saw that the surrounding waves had been frozen into ice by the invisible force. Boom! Countless ice cubes shattered at this moment. A huge golden figure descended from the sky and charged directly at Feng Long. It was Alyssa. Without the cover of the waves, Feng Long couldn't dodge at all. He could only face it head-on. Gritting his teeth, Feng Long lifted the halberd and swung it with his right hand. Like a whip, the halberd shot towards Eris' waist. However, what made Feng Long helpless was that Eris' body was too hard. Even if he used the halberd with all his strength, he was still unable to shake Eris in the slightest. In an instant, Alyssa closed in on Feng Long. Alyssa's golden fist punched out. The air shook and whistled. Boom! Feng Long swung the halberd in his right hand in an attempt to block Alyssa's powerful fist. However, what made Feng Long sad was that Alyssa's strength was too terrifying. It wasn't something that he could block at all. Feng Long spat out a mouthful of blood and was directly sent flying. He heavily smashed into the ground and slid on the ground for nearly a dozen meters before coming to a stop. Seeing Feng Long's clean defeat, Zhou Li and the others' expressions changed. They hurried to Feng Long's side and looked at Feng Long, who was vomiting blood on the ground. Big brother Feng, are you alright? Zhou Li's beautiful eyes were filled with worry as she anxiously asked. Feng Long wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said with a bitter smile, I'm not dead yet. What I didn't expect was that I'm not even Alyssa's opponent. I'm afraid that our 9 Dragons city will have to stop here in this Origin Energy Tower battle. Zhou Li and the others fell silent. Even the strongest genius of 9 Dragons city, Feng Long, wasn't Alyssa's opponent, let alone them. For a moment, the atmosphere became extremely solemn. Does Zhuowen have any hope of passing this stage? Zhou Li suddenly asked. Feng Long shook his head and said, It's very difficult. Zhuowen is indeed very strong, but he's not much stronger than me. He's probably about the same as Alyssa. However, behind Alyssa is the even more powerful Underworld King. Zhuowen might be able to defeat Alyssa, but it's impossible for him to defeat the Underworld King. This is because I suspect that the Underworld King's strength is already comparable to a peak Ultimate Emperor Realm expert. I'm afraid that he's not far from a peak Ultimate Emperor Realm expert. Zhou Li and the others heard this, and a trace of worry appeared in their eyes. Now, only 9 Dragons City and Vine Armor City's Zhuowen were left on the Sandstone Island. If the two of them couldn't pass the Underworld King's stage, then wouldn't all the teams on the Sandstone Island be doomed to fail? The difficulty of this Sandstone Island is too high. There's actually an existence comparable to a peak Ultimate Emperor Realm expert. I'm afraid that only the geniuses of the teams from super cities might be able to defeat such an existence. Logically speaking, the first level of the Origin Chi Tower shouldn't be so difficult. Feng Long suddenly thought of something and said. When Zhou Li and the others heard this, they also realized that there was something strange about this Sandstone Island. Their 9 Dragon City was an extremely powerful high-grade city. If even they couldn't pass through, Didn't that mean that the other low-grade high-grade cities had no hope of passing through? Alice, who was in the middle of the room, seemed to have received the Underworld King's order. He didn't continue to attack and instead stood expressionlessly beside the Underworld King. A trace of respect appeared on his face. Your strength is too weak. If you want to kill me, it's simply not enough. However, I'm not a bloodthirsty person. I can give you a chance to live. If you can tell me how to get out of this sandstone island, I promise you that I won't kill you. In fact, I'll even give you benefits that you can't hide. The Underworld King said with a strange look in his eyes. When Feng Long and the others heard this, they couldn't help but sneer in their hearts. Even they didn't know how to enter the Origin Chi Tower. They had only entered the Origin Chi Tower by relying on the identity token issued by the House of Marquis Qin. Moreover, only they could use the identity token. Others couldn't use it at all. Speaking of which, their understanding of the Origin Chi Tower wasn't much better than the Underworld King. Since you have a way to enter the Sandstone Island, don't you have a way to get out? Or do you not want to tell me? The Underworld King narrowed his eyes and said in a cold voice, Actually, we don't know how to get out of the Sandstone Island either. Jolie said with a bitter smile. You don't know? The Underworld King's face became extremely cold. It seems like you think that I'm easy to talk to and want to refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Since you don't want to tell me, then die. Alice, get rid of all of them for me. After he finished speaking, Alice, who was like a small mountain, nodded respectfully. Then, he took heavy steps and instantly arrived in front of Feng Long and the others. He directly threw a punch at Feng Long's head. The wind created by the punch was like a hurricane. Feng Long and the others couldn't dodge it at all. It's over. Feng Long smiled bitterly. His eyes were filled with despair. Alice's punch was too powerful. They couldn't block it at all. They were afraid that they would all die here. Boom. Chapter 406. Crushing Rumble. A surging wave of air surged out. Soon after, Feng Long and the others were shocked to discover that Alice, who was as tough as a small mountain, had actually been pushed back over a dozen steps before he could stabilize himself. The wave of air dispersed, and a slender figure stood steadily before Feng Long and the others. He had black hair, black eyes, and a handsome face. His clothes fluttered even though there was no wind. Zhuowen. Feng Long was the first to react, and he couldn't help but speak softly. He never imagined that the person who had saved them would actually be Zhuowen. Moreover, what surprised him even more was that not only had Zhuowen blocked Alice's full-force punch, he had even forced Alice back over a dozen steps. Could it be that Zhuowen still hadn't revealed his true strength? Just how deeply has this fellow concealed his strength? He wasn't much stronger than me on the first level, but now he's able to force Alice back with a single punch. Just how strong has Zhuowen become? Feng Long smiled bitterly. After witnessing the scene from before, he suddenly felt that he couldn't see through this young man who had come from a low-level city. Oh? So it's you? I thought that you wouldn't dare to come up here, but you've finally shown yourself. Your strength isn't bad. You were actually able to force Alice back. Looks like you're the most powerful person here. The stronger you are, the better. You'll become even more valuable when you become part of my collection. A scarlet light flashed through the Lord of the Underworld's eyes as he stared fixedly at Zhuowen. It was as if he was looking at a piece of art, and his eyes were filled with admiration. Zhuowen, you have to be careful. Alice and the Lord of the Underworld aren't easy to deal with. Alice's strength is probably comparable to a cultivator at the late stage of the first cycle of the Emperor realm, and the Lord of the Underworld is even stronger. He's infinitely close to a cultivator at the second cycle of the Emperor realm. Although your strength isn't bad. Feng Long suddenly stopped Zhuowen and hurriedly reminded him. After all, Zhuowen had just saved their lives. Although Feng Long was extremely scheming, he was not a petty person. Naturally, he knew how to repay kindness. Therefore, he still wanted to persuade Zhuowen not to be impulsive. I know all this. Actually, I've been standing behind the door for a long time. I've also clearly heard the conversation between you and the Lord of the Underworld. I'm also very clear about the strength of Alice and the Lord of the Underworld. Zhuowen paused and said with a faint smile. Feng Long shook his head helplessly when he heard this. He knew that since Zhuowen had said so, it meant that the latter did not intend to give up. Brother Feng, do you think Zhuowen has the ability to defeat Alice? Zhou suddenly asked nervously. I can't see through Zhuowen, but I believe that Zhuowen's strength is above Alice. After all, he directly defeated Alice just now. However, it's almost impossible for him to kill the Lord of the Underworld. Zhou, if the situation doesn't seem right later, let's directly teleport out of the Vitality Tower. Otherwise, we'll only lose our lives if we stay here. Feng Long shook his head and said. Zhou wrinkled her delicate nose when she heard this. Although she was a little unhappy with Feng Long's cowardly attitude, she also knew that it was impossible for them to defeat the Lord of the Underworld at this moment. Perhaps this Zhuowen has a chance to defeat the Lord of the Underworld? Zhou suddenly said. Perhaps. Feng Long muttered with a strange expression. Kid, since you've been standing outside the door all this while, you must have seen how powerful I am. Therefore, I advise you to stop struggling in vain. On this island, I'm the supreme existence. You can't kill me at all. So, you'd better obediently become my treasure. The Lord of the Underworld said with a strange smile. Shaking his head, Zhuowen said indifferently, I'm sorry, I'm not interested in becoming your treasure. However, I'm quite interested in your heart. Looks like you're really courting death. The Lord of the Underworld's face gradually turned cold. He pointed with his right hand and said, Alice, kill this guy directly. Boom. Alice still obeyed the Lord of the Underworld's orders expressionlessly. He moved his heavy feet and charged towards Zhuowen like a barbaric rhinoceros. His huge body caused intense tremors as he stomped on the ground, causing cracks to appear on the ground. The one who's courting death is not me, but you. With a cold shout, Zhuowen stomped his feet, and 2 pairs of huge thunder wings appeared on his back. At the same time, the color of his skin began to change from a glazed color to a fiery red color. Numerous fiery red lines appeared on the surface of Zhuowen's body, as if red blood vessels were spitting out of his skin. Waves of fiery aura surged out from Zhuowen's body. I wonder how effective the 7th level of the Jade Stone body tempering technique is? Compared to this legendary warrior, Alice, who's stronger? The fiery red lines that covered the surface of Zhuowen's body were formed by bloody flames. Once these bloody flames were attached to the surface of Zhuowen's body, they could greatly increase the strength of Zhuowen's body, allowing his strength to reach an unimaginable level. Boom! Alice instantly approached Zhuowen. Compared to the huge Alice, Zhuowen was as small as an ant. Alice's huge golden fist was almost the size of Zhuowen. Facing the golden fist that was like a huge rock, Zhuowen was not afraid at all. He stood in front of the golden fist without any intention of dodging. His right hand clenched into a fist, and his right arm that was covered with fiery red lines directly swung out, brazenly smashing against the huge golden fist. At the same time, Zhuowen secretly mobilized the bloody flames in his body. The moment they came into contact with Alice, they directly invaded his blood. Crack! The crisp sound of bones cracking was immediately heard. Immediately after, Feng Long and the rest were shocked to discover that Alice's huge right arm was distorted in an irregular manner. Even his wrist was bent backward. Alice's right arm was actually crippled by Zhuowen. Feng Long and the rest looked at Alice's almost dislocated right arm in disbelief. Their pupils shrank to the size of needles. Alice, who was not even afraid of the Emperor rank armor skill halberd of stormy waves, actually had his right arm crippled by Zhuowen? With his right arm crippled, Alice was still expressionless, as if he did not feel any pain at all. His left arm that was ready to attack directly attacked Zhuowen's back. Boom! Zhuowen's expression did not change. His left hand reached up and directly caught the left arm that was attacking from behind. Then, his left hand suddenly rotated 360 degrees and directly crippled Alice's left arm. It seems that Alice has already been made into a puppet by you. His intelligence has already been erased by you. No wonder he doesn't even feel pain. Just nice, I'll help him get rid of it. Zhuowen's expression was cold. His left hand that was grabbing Alice's left arm suddenly pulled. Alice's mountain-like body directly fell down. At the same time, Zhuowen's right arm that was ready to attack suddenly punched out. Waves of bloody flames burst out and directly blasted into Alice's forehead. Poochie! Zhuowen's right arm punched a bloody hole in between Alice's eyebrows. A wisp of blood flame flower drilled into Alice's body from this bloody hole. Following Alice's blood, it began to spread throughout Alice's meridians. The bloody flames were extremely peculiar. Once they came into contact with blood, they would continuously burn. Its nourishment came from blood. The stronger the blood master, the more terrifying the bloody flames that could be produced. Sizzle! Sizzle! In an instant, all the blood in Alice's body was spread by the bloody flames. In just an instant, his entire body was covered in bloody flames. In just an instant, Alice's huge body was directly burned to ashes. Seeing Zhuowen finish off Alice so quickly, Feng Long and the others all gasped. They could only stare blankly at the pile of ashes that had gathered into a small mountain under Zhuowen's feet. Those were the ashes of Alice that had been burned to ashes by the bloody flames. As the wind blew, they fluttered in the air. He finished off Alice so quickly? Isn't this too fast? Feng Long recovered from his shock after a long time. The corner of his eyes kept twitching. He had fought with Alice for so long and had lost in the end. However, Zhuowen had finished off Alice with a few extremely powerful moves. This immediately made Feng Long, who was originally somewhat arrogant, feel ashamed. This Zhuowen is really abnormal. Alice is a legendary level warrior. How could he be finished off so easily? Zhou Li and the others also stared blankly at the ashes on the ground. They had yet to recover from the shocking scene. The Lord of the Underworld narrowed his crimson eyes as he stared intently at Zhuowen in front of him. The Lord of the Underworld's heart was filled with astonishment at how Alice had been finished off so quickly. He was well aware of how strong Alice's physical body was. Although Alice's physical body was slightly weaker than his, the king of the Netherworld who focused on physical strength, Alice's physical body was considered extremely strong among human ancient martial art practitioners. Very few ancient martial art practitioners had a physical body that was stronger than Alice's. However, Zhuowen had directly crippled Alice in a head-on clash. Clearly, this child's physical body was much stronger than Alice. In particular, the bloody flames that surged out of Zhuowen's body made the Lord of the Underworld extremely fearful. He had actually burned Alice to ashes. What a shocking physical body! There aren't many human warriors who can defeat Alice. However, you were able to clash head-on with him and cripple Alice. Even I am impressed by the strength of your physical body. You're qualified to challenge me. The Lord of the Underworld slowly stood up from his throne. His crimson eyes looked down at Zhuowen from above as the corners of his mouth curled up into a beautiful arc. Continue acting tough. Will you die if you don't? Watch me beat you until you're looking for your teeth on the ground. Die. Zhuowen could not stand the Lord of the Underworld's condescending attitude. He stomped his foot and the bloody flames in his body surged out, enveloping his entire body. In an instant, the temperature in the metal room soared to an extremely terrifying level. Even the metal on the walls of the room melted under the high temperature and flowed all over the floor. Chapter 407. The Lord of the Underworld's real body. The entire metal room was filled with endless crimson flames. The crimson flames looked as if they were dyed with blood. It was a poignant yet eerie sight. Thud! 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 Zhuowen slowly walked out of the endless crimson flames. His gaze was extremely cold. The metal throne in the middle of the room melted into a silver liquid under the burning of the crimson flames. The Lord of the Underworld's expression changed slightly as he took a few steps back. What a strange flame! It actually makes my blood feel like it's burning. The Lord of the Underworld's expression was solemn. He stared at the crimson flames around him with fear. The moment he touched the crimson flames, the blood in his body had left his meridians uncontrollably. Boom! Zhuowen was expressionless at that moment. He took a step forward and the two pairs of lightning wings on his back shrouded him. His entire body turned into a blinding blue lightning as he charged toward the Lord of the Underworld. Brat, if you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. The Lord of the Underworld stood tall. He shook his right hand and a black energy condensed into a black longsword in his palm. He then stomped his foot and a black ring of air was formed around him. It separated the crimson flames that were coming toward him. At the same time, the lightning that Zhuowen had turned into arrived before the Lord of the Underworld. He held the moon demon dragon's pine spear tightly in his right hand and thrust it toward the Lord of the Underworld's chest like a snake. The Lord of the Underworld sneered. He waved his right hand and the black longsword turned into countless shadows that blocked the moon demon dragon's pine spear. At the same time, he clenched his left hand and condensed another black longsword. He then lifted his left hand and the black longsword cut through the air and slashed toward Zhuowen's chest. Boom! A thunderous sound was heard. The two pairs of lightning wings on Zhuowen's back opened and closed. He turned into a lightning bolt and dodged the Lord of the Underworld's slash. The lightning bolt was extremely fast and appeared behind the Lord of the Underworld in an instant. It then turned into Zhuowen's figure. The fourth style of the Moon Demon secret technique, blood-bursting style. Break for me! Zhuowen, who was above the Hades King, bellowed and immediately performed the blood-bursting style. His right hand, which was holding the blood-red spear, smashed down violently. A huge spear shadow appeared in the void. It was like a towering blood-red mountain peak that smashed towards the Hades King's head with a rumble. However, the Lord of the Underworld was clearly not to be trifled with. He did not even look behind him. He crossed his black blades and lifted them up, blocking the huge spear shadow that was descending from the sky. Then, the Lord of the Underworld's crossed blades opened and closed, directly breaking the huge blood-red spear shadow. The blood rupture style was actually broken. This Netherworld King is indeed powerful. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed when he saw the blood rupture style being broken apart so easily by the Netherworld King. However, his movements were not slow at all. He swept the blood-colored great spear in the air and executed the fifth style of the demonic moon secret scripture, blood explosion style. Waves of blood chi gushed out from the apertures on his body and formed countless blood-colored balls. Boom! 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 The blood-colored balls shot towards the Lord of the Underworld. When they were only 10 feet away from the Lord of the Underworld, they all exploded. The aftermath of the explosion caused the entire metal room to shake continuously. Looks like it's not enough. Boundless Sword Gale, come out! Looking at the exploding blood-colored balls below, Zhuowen knew that with the Lord of the Underworld's strength, he would not be injured so easily. Therefore, he took out the 4th grade origin formation, Boundless Sword Gale, directly from his Qiankuan bag. Flying sword controlling execution, cut down everything for me. Zhuowen immediately formed a sword seal with his hands and pointed his right sword finger downwards. The 108 sword-shaped spiritual treasures in the Boundless Sword Gale gathered together and formed a huge longsword that was dozens of feet long. The surface of the longsword glowed with flowing light. The flying sword controlling execution was the first of the 3 great sword moves contained in the Boundless Sword Gale. Although the 3 great sword moves in the Boundless Sword Gale were extremely obscure and profound, Zhuowen had already obtained the Boundless Sword Gale for more than a year. Naturally, he had fully comprehended the sword moves within. Among them, Zhuowen had basically completely mastered the first move, flying sword controlling execution, and the second move, falling flower wave breaking kill. However, he had not completely mastered the third move, 9 consecutive moves of the revolving heaven sword dance. According to the information in the Boundless Sword Gale, the third move, 9 consecutive moves of the revolving heaven sword dance, was the most powerful. If it was fully executed, its power might be comparable to the power of a mid-level royal tier armor skill. It was much more powerful than Feng Long's Stormy Waves halberd technique, which was a low-level royal tier armor skill. Ding! The crisp sound of a sword rang out. The huge longsword turned into a ray of flowing light and directly shot into the explosion area below. Immediately after, an extremely dazzling cold light burst forth. For a moment, other than the violent explosive energy in the explosion area, there were also countless extremely sharp sword lights flickering. Whoosh! The sound of something breaking through the air suddenly rang out. Zhuowen's eyes suddenly narrowed. He found that in the explosion area below, the huge longsword transformed by the Boundless Sword Gale was flying directly toward him. Its speed was almost at its limit. Bang! Zhuowen swung the blood-red spear in his right hand and directly bombarded the huge longsword. The ear-piercing sound of metal clashing was heard. Under the huge impact, Zhuowen was forced to retreat continuously. The soles of his feet stepped in the void, and he barely managed to stop himself. The mind power in his body suddenly spread out. Under the control of his mind power, the huge longsword immediately turned into 108 sword-shaped spirit treasures under the control of his mind power. They circled around Zhuowen in an extremely orderly manner. Boom! At the same time, the explosion area below was suddenly enveloped by a black energy. It slowly dissipated, revealing the figure of a red-eyed young man in a black suit. Boy, is that all you've got? If that's all you've got, you can just die now. At this moment, the Lord of the Underworld was completely unharmed. He lightly stepped on the void and fixed his gaze on Zhuowen. The black blade in his hand slashed across the void, and a huge crescent-shaped black blade light cut through the void and swept toward Zhuowen. Of course not. Zhuowen swept the spear in his right hand in front of him and destroyed the huge blade light. Then, he suddenly clenched his left hand, and the strange crimson flame appeared in his palm again. Then, under the Lord of the Underworld's confused gaze, he wiped the crimson flame on the surface of the blood-red spear. Instantly, the demon moon dragon spine spear was surrounded by the crimson flame and turned into a strange crimson flame spear. The crimson flame has the characteristic of burning blood. As long as a living being has blood in their body, no matter how tough your body is, as long as the crimson flame touches you, your blood will definitely be burned by the crimson flame. Lord of the Underworld, my crimson flame is the best at restraining a monster with thick skin like you. With a cold smile, Zhuowen suddenly took a step forward. The crimson flame spear in his right hand was like a swimming dragon as it swept toward the Lord of the Underworld. Looking at the crimson flame on the demon moon dragon spine spear, the Lord of the Underworld's expression turned grave. The strange crimson flame in Zhuowen's body did indeed have a suppressive effect on him. However, this kind of suppression did not have much effect on the Lord of the Underworld. Although the suppression was not great, Zhuowen's strength was similar to his. With the crimson flame, Zhuowen would definitely be able to suppress the Lord of the Underworld. It's too early for you to be complacent. Do you really think that a mere crimson flame can do anything to me? What a joke! The Lord of the Underworld was not to be outdone. With 2 black blades in his hands, he turned into a series of afterimages in mid-air and directly swept toward Zhuowen. Boom! 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 In an instant, the 2 of them were engaged in a fierce battle. The sound of metal clashing continuously exploded in the room. The 2 of them were extremely fast, almost forming afterimages in the room. It was impossible to tell who was Zhuowen or the Lord of the Underworld. From the continuous clashing sounds of pressure, one could tell that an extremely intense battle was taking place in the room. Outside the door, Feng Long and the rest looked into the room from afar. When they saw the intense battle in the room, they were shocked. With their strength, they could naturally feel how terrifying the Lord of the Underworld's strength was. What a powerful Lord of the Underworld! Based on the strength that the Lord of the Underworld has displayed, I'm afraid that he's already at the level of a peak Huang Jing. And Zhuowen is actually able to fight the Lord of the Underworld to a standstill. This fellow is really terrifying, Feng Long said dejectedly as he stared at the battle in the room. At this moment, the strength that Zhuowen had displayed truly left him in the dust. Even with his arrogant character, he had to admit that regardless of talent or strength, he was indeed far inferior to the former. 2 hours, 4 hours, 10 hours, half a day, 1 day, 1 day and 1 night. The two of them had fought for 1 day and 1 night. They had exchanged no less than a few thousand blows, but there was still no sign of victory or defeat. However, after such a long battle, the two of them had exhausted a lot of their strength. Their chests were heaving up and down, and their bodies were covered in wounds. However, due to the suppression of the blood flames, the Lord of the Underworld's injuries were more serious than Zhuowen's. At this moment, he was no longer as elegant as before. His neat robes had become tattered, and there were many terrifying wounds on his body. I really didn't expect you to be able to fight with me to this extent. Your strength has greatly exceeded my expectations. However, this is the end of it. The Lord of the Underworld was stern at this moment. He was truly slightly shocked by Zhuowen's strength. He had never thought that Zhuowen would be able to fight with him to this extent. However, he also knew that with the suppression of the blood flames, the chances of him losing in the end were far too great. As a result, he had to end the battle quickly to have a chance at victory. You're the second person in the past 1,000 years to force me to reveal my true form. The first person was the Lord of the Holy City, Eris, who had once tried to seal me. However, just as you've seen, Eris became my treasure in the end. Now your fate will be the same as Eris. You will die here and become my treasure. The Lord of the Underworld sneered. Dense, black energy immediately surrounded him, turning into a black egg that was several meters wide in an instant. Moreover, the egg constantly beat like a heart. Every time it beat, the black egg actually grew a little larger. Zhuowen's face finally changed when he heard the Lord of the Underworld's words. He had never thought that the Lord of the Underworld would actually have a true form. He had not even fought with the Lord of the Underworld's strongest strength. I can't let the Lord of the Underworld hatch successfully. The Lord of the Underworld who hasn't revealed his true form is already tiring enough for me. If he reveals his true form, even I won't be his opponent. Chapter 408. Crimson Lotus Rumble. The crimson spear smashed into the giant black egg and bounced off. Zhuowen was forced to take more than 10 steps back by the huge recoil. The crimson spear stabbed into the ground, and he barely managed to stabilize himself. What a tough egg! No wonder the Lord of the Underworld is so relaxed and hiding in this giant black egg. It seems like he's not afraid that I'll be able to smash it to pieces. Zhuowen stared at the black egg that was growing bigger and bigger as he rubbed his numb hand. Thump, thump, the sound of a heartbeat reverberated throughout the room. The black egg had already swelled from several tens of feet to several tens of feet in size. Moreover, from the looks of it, the black egg would continue to grow. It might even reach a terrifying size of several thousand feet. As the black egg grew bigger, the aura it emitted became more and more terrifying. It had already surpassed the strength of a peak Ultimate Emperor Stage practitioner, and was probably comparable to a half-step Ultimate Emperor Stage practitioner. Kid, there's no need to hold back. If the Lord of the Underworld fully matures, his strength will probably reach the early stage of the Ultimate Emperor Stage. At that time, even if you have many trump cards, you won't be a match for the Lord of the Underworld. Xiao Hei's voice rang out in his mind. She sounded quite serious. Zhuowen nodded slightly. He knew that the situation was critical. He slapped his Qianquan bag and immediately took out a palm-sized, three-legged cauldron. It was the Earth-rank soul treasure, the 9-wheel heaven-burning cauldron. 9-wheel heaven-burning array condense. He slapped the 9-wheel heaven-burning cauldron with his right hand, and the small cauldron in his palm immediately grew in size. It grew to several dozen feet in size, and the opening at the bottom of the cauldron spewed out 3 types of powerful earth fires. They were the 9 heavens thunder blaze, the 3,000 jade lotus blaze, and the star blaze. The blue, green, and white earth fires merged together in the opening of the 9-wheel heaven-burning cauldron, turning into an extremely violent 3-colored firestorm that soared into the sky. In the blink of an eye, the entire golden room collapsed inch by inch under the raging firestorm. Waves of heat waves gushed forth, almost vaporizing the air into nothingness. Feng Long's group, who were originally standing outside the main door and observing the situation, quickly retreated when the heat wave came pouncing over. Only when they retreated to an open ground dozens of meters away did Feng Long's group stare blankly at the 3-colored firestorm that was like a pillar supporting the sky. They were unable to speak for a long time. They did not expect Zhuowen to have such a powerful trump card, especially the 9-wheel burning sky cauldron that Zhuowen had taken out. Although they did not recognize it, they could tell from the aura of the 9-wheel burning sky cauldron that it was definitely an earthly soul treasure. Moreover, it was an earthly soul treasure with extraordinary power. This Zhuowen is truly terrifying. I originally thought that this person only had a freakish physical body. I did not expect him to have an earthly soul treasure, a supreme treasure that even our 9 Dragons city does not possess. Feng Long shook his head. The trace of unwillingness in his heart had finally disappeared. Whether it was the freakish strength that Zhuowen had displayed or the earthly soul treasure that he had just taken out, Feng Long was far inferior to the former. No matter how unwilling he was, he had to admit that this Zhuowen was truly monstrous. Brother Feng, I knew it. This Zhuowen might actually be able to defeat the Lord of the Underworld. Jolie's gaze was fixed on Zhuowen as she suddenly said this. The Lord of the Underworld is not that easy to deal with. If my guess is correct, once the Lord of the Underworld successfully descends into his true body, his strength will probably reach the initial stage of the second wheel Ultimate Emperor stage. Even if Zhuowen has an earthly soul treasure, the difference in their realms is too great. It is unlikely that he will be a match for the Lord of the Underworld. Feng Long shook his head and still objected. Boom! The tricolored firestorm whizzed past and ruthlessly collided with the black egg that was still expanding. Instantly, the surrounding air within a radius of several hundred feet flowed in reverse. Shock waves swirled in all directions as the sound of an explosion rang out. Bang! What surprised Zhuowen was that under the impact of the tricolored firestorm, the expansion of the black egg actually shrank. It was as if the black egg was extremely fearful of the firestorm. It's actually effective. Then just break it for me. Seeing that the firestorm had a suppressive effect on the black egg, Zhuowen hurriedly activated the 3 earthly fires within the 9-wheel incineration cauldron. Immediately, the tricolored firestorm became even more powerful and turbulent, faintly showing signs of suppressing the black egg. Damned brat! You actually have earthly fires on you, and more than one type at that. However, this king will not suppress it just like that. Don't even think of stopping this king's true body from descending. A low and venomous roar rang out from the black egg. As soon as the roar died down, the surface of the black egg immediately emitted an extremely dense ink-black light. Following that, Zhuowen was shocked to discover that the tricolored firestorm was actually suppressed by this black energy. The black egg's expansion speed actually increased by a lot. In the blink of an eye, it had expanded to more than 800 feet. Moreover, this expansion speed was still increasing. Obviously, the Lord of the Netherworld had used a secret technique to accelerate the expansion of the black egg. Seeing this scene, Zhuowen's eyes were immediately covered with a layer of darkness. He definitely could not allow the Lord of the Netherworld's true body to appear. Otherwise, he would not be a match for the Lord of the Netherworld. It's time to test out the blood flame, a special flame whose strength surpasses the 3 types of earthly fires, after entering the 9-wheel incineration cauldron. How powerful will it be? Hopefully, it will be able to completely suppress the Lord of the Netherworld. Zhuowen clenched his teeth, and wisps of strange blood flame immediately surged out of his body. Under Zhuowen's control, the endless blood flame slowly entered the 9-wheel incineration cauldron. After passing through the 9-wheel incineration formation in the cauldron, the blood flame completely merged with the other 3 types of earthly fires, greatly increasing the 9-wheel incineration formation's strength. In an instant, the tricolored firestorm was gradually dyed with a poignant blood-red color. In an instant, the firestorm's strength immediately surged, directly suppressing the black energy that enveloped the surface of the black egg. Ah! Bastard brat, this king will definitely kill you. Kill you! Under the suppression of the firestorm, the black egg's expansion speed completely stopped. It stopped at 800 feet in size and completely stopped expanding. At this moment, the Lord of the Netherworld's flustered and exasperated voice rang out. His tone was extremely terrifying as he gritted his teeth. Crack! The black egg shattered at this moment, and a wave of ink-black energy flowed out in all directions, directly annihilating the firestorm in front of him. Then, a figure that was 800 feet in size slowly emerged from the black egg. The Lord of the Netherworld's true body looked no different from the evil creature. The only difference was that the Lord of the Netherworld's true body was much larger, and there was a sharp, ink-black horn growing out of his forehead. At this moment, the Lord of the Netherworld's expression was extremely gloomy. He had never imagined that the process of his true body's descent would be ruined by Zhuowen. His true body was originally several hundred feet in size, and his strength was comparable to that of an early-stage 2-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm ancient martial art practitioner. However, due to the obstruction of Zhuowen's firestorm, he could only break out of the egg prematurely. His body was only 800 feet in size, and his strength was only around the level of a half-step 2-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm. The loss could be said to be heavy. Zhuowen looked at the flustered and exasperated Lord of the Netherworld with some surprise. He had not expected the latter to be able to break out of the egg prematurely. This was something that he had not expected. Brat, you ruined this king's true body's descent ceremony. This king will definitely kill you. I will definitely kill you. Go to hell. The Lord of the Netherworld's chest was filled with rage. After breaking out of the egg, he flew directly towards Zhuowen. His huge, sharp claws tore through the void, shattering the space as he attacked Zhuowen's head. He had to kill this detestable brat in front of him. Otherwise, he would not be able to vent the hatred in his heart. Even though he broke out of the egg prematurely, he still has the strength of a half-step 2-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm. This Lord of the Netherworld is indeed a little abnormal. Zhuowen's expression immediately became serious. The difference between a peak Ultimate Emperor Realm and a half-step 2-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm was only half a step. However, the difference in strength between the two was still quite large. At this moment, Zhuowen was only comparable to a peak Ultimate Emperor Realm ancient martial art practitioner. He was afraid that he would not be able to defeat the Lord of the Netherworld at this moment. Brat, try to combine the blood flames and extreme frost to form the fire and ice lotus. This dragon lord can feel that the blood flames in your body are extremely extraordinary. I'm afraid that the fire and ice lotus formed from the combination will be beyond our imagination. At this moment, Xiao Hei's voice suddenly rang out in his mind. Hearing this, Zhuowen's eyes immediately lit up. The blood flames had mutated and formed when he broke through to the 7th level of the Jade Stone body tempering technique. Its strength was far greater than the other 3 types of earth fire in his body. As for extreme frost, it was even more powerful than the other earth rank frost chi. The fire and ice lotus formed from the combination of the 2 extremely powerful ice and fire energies would probably be much more terrifying than before. Let's give it a try then. Zhuowen also knew that he could only try the fire and ice lotus now. Otherwise, apart from this move, he really could not think of any other powerful item that could resist the Lord of the Netherworld, whose strength had reached the half-step 2-wheel ultimate Emperor realm. Whoosh! In an instant, Zhuowen summoned extreme frost and blood flames. Then, he skillfully combined the blood flames and extreme frost in his hands slowly. With a tearing sound, a white lotus with a touch of poignant beauty slowly bloomed from Zhuowen's hand. An unbearably hot aura spread throughout the entire room. As soon as the blood-colored lotus appeared, the surrounding space actually formed a vacuum. At this moment, the Lord of the Netherworld had already descended above Zhuowen's head. A pair of extremely sharp giant claws were already swinging down. It would only take a breath's time to tear Zhuowen into pieces. Perhaps this fire and ice lotus can really resist the Lord of the Netherworld. As he muttered softly, Zhuowen's eyes were filled with madness. He tossed his right hand upwards, and a strange blood lotus suddenly bloomed into the sky. Blood lotus? Brat, you can't possibly think that this little lotus can stop me, right? Ha ha! How laughable! Just die for me! The Lord of the Netherworld's face was filled with a mocking smile. His giant claws slammed toward the blood lotus without a care in the world. He wanted to slap this troublesome lotus away. Boom! Chapter 409. Inner Demon. Boom! Destructive energy spread out from the void. Ripples appeared in the void. Wherever the ripples passed, the entire metal room was reduced to dust. A huge crater was formed on the spot. It was deep and terrifying. In the void, a huge blood-colored lotus flower that was a few hundred feet tall slowly bloomed. Wherever the blood-colored lotus flower passed, there was no difference. Everything was crushed into dust by the powerful force of the blood-colored lotus flower. When Feng Long and the rest realized that something was amiss, they had already retreated to a safe place. They looked up at the huge blood-colored lotus flower in the void. The shock on their faces had reached its peak. Their facial muscles had stiffened because they had been gaping for a long time. Is this an armor technique? How can it be so powerful? I'm afraid that even the Netherworld King, who's half a step into the ultimate second-wheel Emperor realm, wouldn't be able to withstand such a powerful energy. Feng Long involuntarily swallowed his saliva as he muttered to himself with a dry mouth. Looks like we have underestimated Zhuowen. I never thought that he would have such a technique. No wonder he dared to challenge the Lord of the Underworld alone. Zhou Li, who was beside Feng Long, opened her cherry lips slightly and muttered softly. The huge blood-colored lotus flower bloomed in the void like a night-blooming epiphyllum. Soon after, it gradually withered. The blood-colored petals withered in the void, emitting a poignant yet beautiful color. The moment the blood-colored lotus flower disappeared, a figure covered in blood-red flames slowly walked over from the void. He came to the top of the huge crater below the blood-colored lotus flower. His sharp eyes quietly stared at the motionless Lord of the Underworld in the deep crater. At this moment, the Lord of the Underworld was in an extremely miserable state. Under the power of the blood-colored lotus flower, the scales on his body were all flipped over, revealing terrible wounds. The Lord of the Underworld's originally bright eyes were now extremely dim. Cough cough. I never thought that you would still have such a trump card. I really can't accept my defeat. If this king's true body had descended, how could I have lost? How could I have lost? You little bastard, you despicable fellow. The Nether King coughed violently, and his lantern-sized eyes stared fixedly at Zhuowen, who was above the crater. There was dense unwillingness and resentment in the depths of his eyes. Even until now, he still couldn't believe that he would actually lose, and he would lose in such an aggrieved manner. So what if I can't accept it? A loss is a loss. Do you think you can win it back just by saying a few words of unwillingness? Zhuowen was expressionless. He patted his Qinquan bag with his right hand and took out the demon moon dragon's pine spear. With a gentle shake of his right hand, the spear slithered into the gaps between the scales of the Lord of the Netherworld like an agile snake and went straight into his meridians. 1. The moon demon dragon's spine spear was like a hungry beast. With a long roar, it started to absorb the blood essence of the Lord of the Underworld. Bastard! What are you doing? He's actually absorbing my blood essence. Stop it! Stop it! Do you understand? Feeling the loss of his blood essence, the Lord of the Underworld's eyes were filled with rage. He stared fiercely at Zhuowen, who was floating in midair. If looks could kill, Zhuowen would have been killed 1,000 times over by now. Zhuowen didn't pay any attention to the roaring Lord of the Underworld. Instead, he sat cross-legged in midair, closed his eyes, and started to silently recover his vitality. The power of the blood-colored lotus was beyond his imagination. It was actually able to injure the Lord of the Underworld. However, the amount of blood essence required was also extremely terrifying. Even Zhuowen felt exhausted at this moment. Zhuowen had long planned to let the moon demon dragon's spine spear absorb the blood essence of the Lord of the Underworld. After all, the true dragon bloodline of an ordinary evil being from the Netherworld tribe could raise the moon demon dragon's spine spear by a small level. As the ruler of the Netherworld tribe, the true dragon bloodline in the Lord of the Netherworld tribe would probably be even purer. After the moon demon dragon's spine spear absorbed all the blood essence of the Lord of the Underworld, it might even become an earth-rank spiritual treasure. At that time, the moon demon dragon's spine spear would undergo a true transformation. Seeing that Zhuowen was so stubborn, the Lord of the Underworld almost went into a state of rage. Unfortunately, his injuries were too severe. He was on the verge of death, and he couldn't even move. Even if I die, I won't allow you to humiliate me like this. You want this king's blood essence? Little brat, keep dreaming. Even if this king dies, I won't let you have your way. The Lord of the Underworld gritted his teeth and glared at Zhuowen. Soon after, he quickly chanted an obscure incantation. Then, the aura on the Lord of the Underworld's body withered at a speed visible to the naked eye. At the same time, the Lord of the Underworld's huge body started to expand. As if he sensed the Lord of the Underworld's abnormality, Zhuowen frowned and opened his eyes. When he saw the Lord of the Underworld's expanding body, his expression changed drastically. He stomped his foot and tried to stop the Lord of the Underworld from self-destructing. Kid, it's too late. Even if I die, I won't allow you to blaspheme my bloodline. Don't even think about obtaining my blood essence of the true dragon. The Nether King stared at Zhuowen, whose expression had changed drastically in the sky, and he immediately roared with laughter of ridicule. After that, his entire body swelled to the limit before exploding. Countless pieces of flesh and blood sprayed towards the surroundings from the force of the explosion. For a time, a dense rain of blood descended from the sky. Zhuowen, who was in midair, was directly sent flying backward by the impact of this powerful explosion. His feet stepped on the void, and he stabilized his body in midair dozens of meters away. Did he self-destruct? Hovering in midair, Zhuowen looked at the thick rain of blood around him. His eyes were filled with a complicated expression. The Lord of the Underworld's character was really unyielding. He would rather self-destruct than let Zhuowen absorb his blood essence of the true dragon. The Lord of the Underworld is the ruler of the Underworld tribe after all. He has his own dignity and glory. Although you've defeated the Lord of the Underworld, using the demon moon dragon's spine spear to absorb his blood essence is a humiliation to him. If it were you, I'm afraid you'd be even more extreme than the Lord of the Underworld. Xiao Hei's voice rang out at this moment. However, there was a hint of regret in her voice. Was my action just now wrong? Looking up at the endless rain of blood in the sky, Zhuowen's mind suddenly flashed with countless faces of hatred, grief, anger, pleading, fear, and so on. The owners of these faces were all the enemies Zhuowen had killed over the years. Perhaps there were good and evil among these people. They had lovers and family members, helplessness and concern. However, they all had one thing in common. They had all blocked Zhuowen's path, and even tried to kill him. Of course, in the end, they were all killed by Zhuowen instead. Zhuowen realized that he had unknowingly viewed human lives as worthless. He had become numb to human lives. At this moment, Zhuowen's eyes became confused. He stood quietly in midair as he bathed in the rain of blood. Inner demon? This kid. Could it be that he has fallen into his inner demon at this time? Xiao He seemed to realize that something was wrong with Zhuowen. She could not help but frown. Damn it. Kid, hurry up and wake up. Don't lose yourself in your inner demon. Otherwise, you'll really be consigned to eternal damnation. However, Xiao He's screams were of no use to Zhuowen. At this moment, Zhuowen's eyes were filled with a mountain of corpses and a rain of blood. The sky was filled with blood, and the faces of the countless people he had killed flashed in his eyes. Was I wrong? Suddenly, Zhuowen roared at the sky. A wave of emotions that had been accumulating in his heart for a long time suddenly exploded at this moment. An expression that seemed like both crying and laughing appeared on Zhuowen's face. Under the endless rain of blood, Zhuowen's frail figure seemed so lonely and weak at this moment. It was as if the patter of blood could completely drown his figure. You're wrong. You're completely wrong. From the moment you killed the first person, you were completely wrong. Your path is wrong, your life is wrong, and even your birth is wrong. Why are you still alive? You've obviously lived such a tiring life, so why are you forcing yourself to stay alive? Is there any meaning in scheming against others all day long? Is there any meaning in running around tirelessly and making enemies at every step? Don't you think that living in such a world is not tiring? If you die, it'll be easy. Only when you die can you be carefree and carefree. You don't have to think about anything, worry about anything, and worry about anything. Isn't this the reason why you've always wanted to become stronger? But as long as you're alive, you'll never be able to live a carefree and carefree life. Die. It'll be easy if you die. Hideous faces appeared in the sky amidst the endless rain of blood. They were all persuading, cursing, and tempting Zhuowen. They were all people that Zhuowen had killed before. Boom! A strange aura surged out from Zhuowen's body. Soon after, a blood-red barrier appeared with Zhuowen as the center. In this area, the rain of blood seemed to have become more viscous, and the ground was dyed a strong blood-red. Creak, creak. The crisp sound of bones colliding reverberated clearly in this area. Blood-red skeletons slowly emerged from the blood-red ground in this area. There were humans and beasts among these skeletons. A blood-red flame burned in their hollow eyes. Damn it! After Zhuowen fell into his inner demon, he actually began to undergo the tribulation of heaven and earth. This guy is simply courting death. Could this inner demon be related to the Lord of the Underworld? A black light emerged from between Zhuowen's eyebrows, revealing the appearance of a dog, Xiao He. It was Xiao He. At this moment, Xiao He's gaze was extremely solemn. The number of blood-red skeletons around them was increasing, but Zhuowen's eyes were still in a daze. It was obvious that he was still trapped by his inner demon. He knew that if it did not appear, Zhuowen would be courting death in the face of the tribulation of heaven and earth in his current state. Zhuowen, kid, when did you become so weak? You're actually affected by a mere inner demon. Hurry up and wake up. Chapter 4:10 That Awakening, the Lord of the Netherworld, has really been defeated. Feng Long muttered to himself with a dry mouth as he stared at the motionless body of the Lord of the Netherworld in the giant pit in the distance. Zhou Li and the other three, who were following beside Feng Long, stared fixedly at the ruins in the distance that had already turned into rubble. They could not help but swallow their saliva a few times. Their hearts were extremely shocked. Although the Lord of the Netherworld's real body descending ceremony had been disrupted by Zhuowen, causing him to hatch prematurely, his strength was still at the level of a half-step second-wheel ultimate emperor. Even if the 5 of them joined forces, they wouldn't be a match for such an existence. However, Zhuowen had completely crippled the Lord of the Netherworld by himself. Brother Feng, it seems like our 9 Dragons city no longer has a chance in this battle for the Vitality Tower. Who would have thought that a low-level city would have such a monstrous freak like Zhuowen? It's not a shame that we lost. Zhou Li sighed. Feng Long's face was filled with disappointment when he heard this. He knew that with his current strength, it was impossible for him to compete with Zhuowen for the Lord of the Netherworld's heart. He would only end up being killed instantly if he went over. That Lord of the Netherworld is a little strange. Oh no, he actually self-destructed. At this moment, Feng Long suddenly saw the body of the Lord of the Netherworld expanding continuously in the giant pit in the distance. After it had expanded to its limit, it directly exploded, causing a rain of blood to scatter in the air. Feng Long and the others were far enough away that they weren't affected by the self-destruction of the Lord of the Netherworld. However, Zhuowen, who was the closest to the explosion, was sent flying by the force of the explosion. At the same time, after the explosion, Feng Long squinted his eyes and immediately noticed a pitch-black heart that was several feet in size at the bottom of the giant pit. The strange thing was that this heart was still beating continuously, and it seemed to be full of vitality. The Lord of the Netherworld's heart? Feng Long's heart tightened when he saw the giant heart at the bottom of the giant pit in the distance. His gaze was fixed on the heart that was still beating, and a trace of greed and hope appeared on his face. This was the heart of the Netherworld King. It was the key to controlling the entire Sandstone Island. As long as they could obtain the heart and bring it to the altar at the top of the Netherworld Castle, they would be able to control the Sandstone Island and ascend to the 2nd floor of the Vitality Tower. This was the most important thing that would determine whether or not 9 Dragons City would be able to ascend to the next level. Standing beside Feng Long, Zhou Li and the rest followed Feng Long's line of sight. When they saw the gigantic heart, their expressions changed. Big Brother Feng, let's not think about it. The Netherworld King was killed by Zhuowen, so his heart should belong to Zhuowen. Furthermore, with Zhuowen's terrifying strength, even if the 5 of us were to join forces to snatch it, our chances of snatching it would be less than 10%. Although Zhou Li longed for the heart of the Lord of Hades, her rationality told her that it was basically impossible for her to snatch the heart from Zhuowen. Unexpectedly, Feng Long shook his head and stared fixedly at Zhuowen, who was standing in the rain of blood in the distance. He said, "If it were any other time, we would indeed have no chance to snatch the heart of the Lord of Hades from Zhuowen. However, could it be that all of you haven't noticed that Zhuowen isn't in a good state right now? Logically speaking, with Zhuowen's eyesight, after the Netherworld King detonated himself, he should be able to quickly discover the heart below. However, Zhuowen didn't notice it. Instead, his emotions became unstable. I'm afraid that the Netherworld King held back before he detonated himself." As Feng Long spoke up to hear, a trace of a bright light flashed through his eyes. Although he didn't know what the Netherworld King had done to Zhuowen to cause Zhuowen to be in a daze, he knew that his chance to seize the Netherworld King's heart had arrived. Could it be that Zhuowen did it on purpose for us to see? Zhou Li questioned. With Zhuowen's strength, there's utterly no need for him to put on an act for us. After all, so long as he was willing, he could even kill the 5 of us. Why would he need to care about us? Feng Long became more and more certain, and his gaze became even more fervent as he stared at the Netherworld King's heart. He knew that as long as he obtained the heart, then Ninth Dragon City wouldn't be eliminated and would possess the qualifications to enter the second level of the Origin Tower. Boom! Right at this moment, a powerful and strange aura suddenly surged out explosively from Zhuowen's body in the distance. After that, Feng Long and the others noticed to their astonishment that a blood-red barrier had actually appeared in an area of over 100 m around Zhuowen. A familiar energy of the heavens and the earth instantly filled the area. This is the aura of a tribulation of the heavens and the earth? Has Zhuowen started to overcome the tribulation of the heavens and the earth? Could it be that this fellow isn't an ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator, but a half-step ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator? Feng Long had just experienced a tribulation of the heavens and the earth not too long ago, so he naturally remembered the aura of the tribulation of the heavens and the earth. When Zhuowen began to undergo the tribulation of the heavens and the earth, he knew with a single glance that it was an aura unique to a tribulation of the heavens and the earth. However, what truly shocked Feng Long wasn't that Zhuowen was undergoing the tribulation of the heavens and the earth, but that Zhuowen was actually a half-step ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. He clearly remembered that Zhuowen had used the energy of the heavens and the earth on the first floor of Nether Castle. Could it be that half-step ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators could also control the energy of the heavens and the earth? Just what kind of freak is this fellow? He's clearly just a half-step ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator, but he's able to control the energy of the heavens and the earth that only ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators can control. Moreover, he's only a half-step ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator, yet he's able to defeat the Netherworld King, who's comparable to a half-step ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. If this fellow succeeds in overcoming the tribulation, then wouldn't his strength be comparable to a half-step ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator? Feng Long's emotions were extremely complicated when he thought up to this point. At the same time, he began to hesitate whether or not he should seize the Netherworld King's heart from Zhuowen. Big Brother Feng, this Zhuowen is too monstrous. I'm afraid it's not worth offending such a monstrous genius for the sake of the Netherworld King's heart. Why don't we retreat? Zhou Li's heart was extremely clear at this moment. The monstrous talent of Zhuowen in front of her was definitely something she had never seen before in her life. As long as such a person didn't die midway, he would definitely become one of the strongest cultivators in the Qingxian Empire in the future. Moreover, the talent that Zhuowen had displayed wasn't inferior to some of the geniuses on the Azure Emperor rankings. If Zhuowen was given a few more years, he might even be able to enter the Azure Emperor rankings. At that time, he would be an extremely dazzling monstrous genius in the entire Qingxian Empire. Sometimes, offending such a genius wasn't worth it. Feng Long stared fixedly at the slender figure in the distance who was in the midst of the tribulation of the heavens and the earth. Out of the corner of his eye, he constantly paid attention to the giant heart in the deep pit in the distance. He, Feng Long, was the team leader of the Nine Dragon City team and also the most dazzling genius in the city. He really didn't want to disappoint the Nine Dragons City and his hopeful father. Now that he had finally arrived at the third level of the Netherworld Castle and the key to controlling the entire Sandstone Island had quietly appeared in front of him, he really wasn't willing to let it go just like that. Zhou Li, you don't have to say any more. I must obtain the Netherworld King's heart. I, Feng Long, am not willing to stop at the first level of the Vitality Tower. As for that Zhuowen, although his talent is monstrous, he was only born in a low-level city and has no background at all. Our Nine Dragons City isn't afraid of him at all. Moreover, once we obtain the Netherworld King's heart, we will immediately control the Sandstone Island to break through the sky and soar into the sky. At that time, Zhuowen will definitely be directly teleported out of the Vitality Tower. Even if he holds a grudge in his heart, there's nothing he can do. As for outside the Vitality Tower, with the might of our Nine Dragons City, Zhuowen won't dare to act rashly. So, at this point, Feng Long's eyes were filled with a fiery passion. With a stomp of his foot, he rushed toward the deep pit in the distance. So, we don't need to be afraid of Zhuowen's revenge at all. After all, in this world, the strength of an individual is too insignificant. If this Zhuowen is smart, he definitely won't offend our 9 Dragons city too much. Seeing that Feng Long didn't listen to her advice and was determined to obtain the Netherworld King's heart, Jolie felt a little helpless in her heart. However, she didn't oppose it. Zhuowen's strength and talent made her rather wary, but after all, the former was only from a low-level city. Perhaps they weren't Zhuowen's match in the Vitality Tower, but once outside the Vitality Tower, their 9 Dragon City's influence was enough to suppress Zhuowen to the point that he wouldn't dare to seek revenge. Therefore, as long as they successfully obtained the Netherworld King's heart, this Zhuowen wouldn't be a threat anymore. An endless rain of blood fell from the boundless blood-red land. A slender figure looked up at the sky with blurred eyes. In that blood-red vision, Zhuowen saw countless resentful faces, endless roars, and endless curses. Those were the faces of all the people he had killed. With blurred eyes, Zhuowen suddenly looked at these familiar yet unfamiliar faces and muttered, "All of you also think that I'm wrong? Yes, you're wrong. From the moment your hands were stained with blood, you've already embarked on the wrong path. Now, only death can wash away the sins on your body. Therefore, you should just die. Only then can you atone for your past actions." The rain of blood accompanied by the blood-red faces constantly swayed in front of Zhuowen's eyes, and Zhuowen became even more confused. "Do all of you who died by my hands have the right to say that I'm wrong?" Suddenly, Zhuowen covered his head with both hands and roared in a low voice. This roar seemed to have been suppressed for a long time. Boom! Zhuowen covered his head with both hands and suddenly smashed it to the ground. Streams of mournful blood flowed down from the ends of his hair. The intense pain instantly caused Zhuowen's mind to become much clearer at this moment. Wrong? Perhaps the one who's wrong isn't me, but this world. In this world where the strong are respected and the weak are eaten by the strong, if you don't resist and struggle, then you'll only end up being slowly eroded by others. In this world, you either continuously become stronger and become a powerhouse who can break through everything, or continuously fall and become a weakling at the bottom who will slowly be annihilated. As he spoke, Zhuowen suddenly raised his head and took a step forward. A powerful aura burst out from his body, and at this moment, his eyes were as bright as the stars in the night sky. Chapter 4:11. Ferocious Boom. The moment Zhuowen raised his head, the ferocious faces in the sky above the rain of blood instantly disappeared like smoke in thin air. On the other hand, Zhuowen's eyes that were originally filled with confusion instantly cleared up at this moment. What a powerful inner demon! I never thought that the Lord of the Underworld would leave behind such a powerful inner demon after he self-destructed. It's a good thing that I was able to stay true to myself. Otherwise, the consequences would have been extremely severe. Zhuowen muttered to himself with lingering fear after he regained clarity. However, after going through the trial of the inner demon, Zhuowen's temperament had become much more resolute than before. If he were to encounter similar inner demons and illusions in the future, it would be much easier for Zhuowen to resist them. "Kid, you've finally come to your senses. Hurry up and help me get rid of these blood-red skeletons." Xiao Hei's voice rang in his ears. Only then did Zhuowen notice that his surroundings were filled with blood-red skeletons. There were both humans and beasts among these blood-red skeletons. It was an extremely strange sight. At this moment, Xiao Hei was standing in front of Zhuowen and continuously waving her claws. Instantly, a large group of skeletons around them were annihilated. This is a heavenly tribulation? Zhuowen quickly noticed the strangeness of the area he was in. It was clearly a scene of a heavenly tribulation descending. He never thought that after he had fallen into his inner demon, he would immediately begin to undergo the heavenly tribulation. When he thought about how he, who had fallen into his inner demon, could be torn apart by these countless skeletons, Zhuowen could not help but break out in cold sweat. It was a good thing that Xiao He had appeared in time and helped him block the attacks of the skeletons around him. Otherwise, based on his muddle-headed performance earlier, he would have been a live target. Xiao He, thank you very much. Zhuowen nodded solemnly at Xiao He. He immediately drew out the demon moon dragon spine spear and swept it with his right hand. Instantly, countless spear shadows appeared in front of him. In an instant, countless blood-red skeletons were annihilated into powder. Boom! Boom! With Zhuowen's current strength, which was comparable to a peak ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator, the tribulation of the heavens and earth was nothing to him. In just an instant, a large group of blood-red skeletons had been annihilated, and it became much easier for Zhuowen and Xiao He to deal with them. Brat, how does it feel to have an inner demon? This dragon lord saw that you had been in the inner demon for a long time. I'm afraid that inner demon isn't ordinary, right? Blackie suddenly asked Zhuowen after wiping out the bloody skeleton in front of it with its little claws. The Lord of the Underworld is quite ruthless. He won't let me go even when he's about to die. The inner demons left behind by the Lord of the Underworld are indeed powerful. Fortunately, I didn't lose my conscience in there and managed to survive. Zhuowen chuckled as he dealt with the blood-colored skeletons around him. Hearing this, Xiao He nodded and smiled. You were able to rely on yourself to survive your first encounter with an inner demon. This shows that you have an extremely strong heart. I'm afraid that if you encounter something similar in the future, you won't be in such a sorry state like today. Yes, an inner demon is indeed a great test of one's heart. The Lord of the Underworld probably didn't expect that I would be able to survive the test of an inner demon. After overcoming this tribulation of the heavens and earth, I should be able to directly attain the peak of the first ultimate Emperor realm. After that, I'll probably be able to break through to the early stage of the second ultimate Emperor realm by absorbing the origin energy within that ball of origin energy. Zhuowen smiled. Once you attain the early stage of the second ultimate Emperor realm, your strength will probably be on par with a peak second ultimate Emperor realm cultivator. At that time, you won't be so helpless when you encounter LV Yongxing again. Xiao He spoke abruptly. Zhuowen's gaze turned gloomy when he heard this. The scene of him being completely helpless against LV Yongxing was still vivid in his mind. He would never forget that feeling of being isolated and helpless. That feeling of helplessness where he couldn't control his own life was something that Zhuowen hated the most. I'll settle that debt with LV Yongxing when the time comes. However, LV Yongxing is a third ultimate Emperor realm cultivator after all. Even if I advance to the early stage of the second ultimate Emperor realm, I'm probably still not a match for him. However, if I'm able to attain the peak of the second ultimate Emperor realm, then I'll have the strength to go against LV Yongxing. Zhuowen pondered deeply for a moment before he spoke in a low voice. Right. You have numerous trump cards. Especially that 9-wheel incineration cauldron of yours. It's at least a high-grade Earth rank spirit treasure, and it might even be a top-grade Earth rank spirit treasure. If you're able to gather all 9 types of Earth flames, then its might will reach an astounding level. Xiao He nodded in agreement. However, his expression quickly turned slightly unsightly as he exclaimed, "Shit! Xiao He, what's wrong?" A trace of a bad premonition arose in Zhuowen's heart when he saw Xiao He's expression, and he frowned slightly as he asked hastily, "Kid, hurry up and get rid of these blood-red skeletons. Otherwise, your efforts in killing the Lord of the Underworld will really be in vain. Feng Long and the others are already rushing towards the deep pit not far away. I'm afraid they're going to snatch the Lord of the Underworld's heart," Xiao He said with an unsightly expression. "What?" Zhuowen's expression changed abruptly. His gaze immediately focused on the deep pit not far away. Indeed, he discovered that Feng Long and the others were rushing towards the black heart in the deep pit. They were now only a few hundred meters away from the heart. Feng Long and the others, Don't tell me they're so shameless? They actually dare to snatch the Lord of the Underworld's heart right under my nose? Zhuowen said in a low voice as a cold glint flashed in his eyes. Hee. After all, that's the key to the second level of the Vitality Tower. As long as they obtain the Lord of the Underworld's heart and successfully reach the altar at the top of the Netherworld Castle before you pass through the tribulation of heaven and earth, then the entire Sandstone Island will be under their control. Naturally, you'll be eliminated immediately, Xiao He said in a cold voice. He had seen through everything clearly. Brother Feng, why aren't you stopping? The Lord of the Underworld was killed by me. I hope Brother Feng won't do anything stupid. Otherwise, don't blame me for offending you when the time comes. Zhuowen's voice reverberated in the air under the amplification of his origin energy. It was loud and ear-piercing. After Feng Long heard Zhuowen's voice, his footsteps slowed down slightly. His eyes flickered incessantly. However, this trace of hesitation only lasted for a moment. Feng Long suddenly stomped his foot and his speed soared to the extreme. He rushed towards the black heart in the deep pit extremely quickly. It was obvious that he had no intention of paying any attention to Zhuowen. Seeing that Feng Long's speed had increased instead of decreasing, Zhuowen's face instantly darkened. He knew that Feng Long had made up his mind to snatch the heart while he was passing through the tribulation of heaven and earth. Brat, don't have any expectations. With such a huge temptation and stimulation, it would be strange if Feng Long listened to you. Hurry up and pass through the tribulation of heaven and earth. So long as you overcome the tribulation of heaven and earth, your strength will rise explosively by many times. At that time, Feng Long won't be a match for a single move of yours at all. Xiao He shook his head. Zhuowen grunted coldly. He knew that he was simply wasting his efforts earlier. His right hand suddenly shook, and the blood-red spear instantly transformed into countless spear images that enveloped the countless blood-red skeletons in the surroundings and killed them all. Swoosh! At this moment, Feng Long had already arrived before the Black Heart. He raised his head slightly to look at Zhuowen, who was still undergoing the tribulation of heaven and earth, and then he grinned and said loudly, Brother Zhuowen, I'll accept such a generous gift like the Lord of the Underworld's heart. Let's meet outside the Origin Energy Tower. After he finished speaking, Feng Long directly shook his right hand and placed the Black Heart into his cosmos pouch. After that, he didn't even look back as he flashed madly in the opposite direction. His speed was actually slightly faster than when he'd arrived. Obviously, Feng Long was afraid that Zhuowen would come to settle the score with him after he finished overcoming the tribulation of heaven and earth. Before Zhuowen had broken through, his strength was already higher than Feng Long's. Now that he had broken through, Feng Long was afraid that he would be killed instantly. Feng Long, you're really something. Let me tell you clearly, Zhuowen's things aren't that easy to take. Seeing Feng Long take the Black Heart and turn around to run madly, Zhuowen's expression was extremely ugly. His heart was filled with anger. The feeling of being backstabbed was extremely sullen. Zhuowen, it's not up to you to decide whether I'm good or not. The tribulation of heaven and earth isn't something that can end in a short period of time. By the time you're done overcoming the tribulation of heaven and earth, I'll have already taken complete control of the Sandstone Island. At that time, you'll be eliminated by me. Feng Long replied, not to be outdone. Then, he directly led Zhou Li and the other three towards the entrance to the top floor of the Netherworld Castle. He didn't even dare to look at Zhuowen, who was behind him. As soon as the Lord of the Netherworld died, a flight of stairs made of floating iron plates appeared at the end of the third floor. The end of this unique flight of stairs was the top floor of the Netherworld Castle, which was also the altar that the Lord of the Netherworld had mentioned. They're really quick to run away. It seems that it's not possible to safely overcome the tribulation of heaven and earth. Looking at Feng Long and the others who were running away quickly, Zhuowen knew that if this continued, Feng Long and the others would have already taken complete control of the Sandstone Island before he could even finish overcoming the tribulation of heaven and earth. Don't tell me you want to directly break through the barrier of the tribulation of heaven and earth? Xiao He narrowed her eyes and asked. That's the only way. Only in this way can we escape from the shackles of the tribulation of heaven and earth. Nodding slightly, Zhuowen's ice-fire sacred rune suddenly lit up. Immediately, his right hand was covered in extreme cold while his left hand was covered in blood-red flames. His hands moved extremely quickly. In the blink of an eye, a strange blood-red lotus slowly bloomed in his palm. Break it for me. Zhuowen's eyes were cold as he threw his right hand forward. The blood-red lotus flew in a straight line towards the blood-red barrier that was several hundred feet away. Wherever it passed, countless blood-red skeletons were turned into dust by the high temperature. Rumble! An earth-shattering explosion rang out as a huge blood-red lotus slowly bloomed. Then, the area within several hundred feet of the tribulation of heaven and earth started to shake as if the heavens and earth were falling apart. Crack! The seemingly indestructible blood-red barrier actually started to crack under the force of the explosion. Then, it started to crumble inch by inch. Rip! Once the blood-red barrier was destroyed, the aura in Zhuowen's body increased layer by layer. He rose from the Ultimate Emperor realm to the peak of the Ultimate Emperor realm. He was only one step away from the Ultimate Emperor realm. What? This guy actually broke through the barrier created by the tribulation of heaven and earth? How is this possible? Chapter 412. Promises, shit. Even the barrier of the heavens and the earth was blasted apart by Zhuowen. I'm afraid he'll catch up to us very soon. Let's flee quickly. So long as we place the Nether King's heart on the altar at the top before Zhuowen catches up to us, then we'll truly control Sandstone Island. At that time, we'll be able to teleport Zhuowen out of the Origin Pagoda ourselves. Feng Long's expression changed abruptly when he saw the blood-red barrier being blasted apart, and he hurriedly urged Zhou Li's group of 4 to swiftly flash up the stairway. Zhuowen was truly too formidable. Even an existence like the Nether King had fallen at his hands, so they didn't have the courage to face Zhuowen at all. However, even though Feng Long's group was swift, Zhuowen was even swifter. The lightning serpent wings and lightning WYRM wings grew out of Zhuowen's back, and his entire body seemed like a bolt of lightning that shot forward at practically the limit. In the blink of an eye, he'd arrived at the entrance of the stairway. At this moment, Feng Long's group was extremely close to the top, and they were around 30 steps away. They only needed the time of 2 or 3 breaths to directly enter the 4th level, and they revealed smiles of relief on their faces. Rumble! An ear-piercing thunderclap exploded out of thin air. Feng Long and the others noticed to their astonishment that Zhuowen had actually arrived not too far behind them, and he floated there like a god or devil with 2 lightning wings on his back. Chen Chen, Chen Xing, Chen Xiang, the 3 of you stop Zhuowen. You just have to delay him for a period of time. Once I place the Nether King's heart on the altar, then I'll truly control Sandstone Island. At that time, Zhuowen will be directly eliminated from the Origin Pagoda. Feng Long turned around and spoke to the other 3 members of his group. The expressions of the 3 young men instantly became slightly unsightly when they heard this. Feng Long's actions were obviously sending them to their deaths. How could they possibly be a match for Zhuowen with their strengths that weren't even at the half-step Ultimate Emperor realm? I, Feng Long, promise that if you help me today, then my 9 Dragon Cities city governor's estate will definitely not treat your clans unfairly. Moreover, we'll do our best to support your clans. If you do not listen, your clans can just wait to be exterminated. Feng Long said ruthlessly with a dark and cold gaze when he saw the hesitation on the 3's faces. Hearing this, Zhou Li's pretty face changed drastically. Just as she was about to speak, she was rendered speechless by Feng Long's glare. When the 3 of them heard this, their faces froze. They cupped their fists and said, I hope Captain Feng doesn't forget today's promise. As soon as they finished speaking, the three of them stomped their feet and directly flashed towards Zhuo Wen, who was behind them, and their faces carried resolute expressions. Zhuowen, if you want to catch up with Captain Feng, you have to go through us first. Zhuo Wen, who had lightning wings on his back, narrowed his eyes when he saw Chen Chen and the others charging at him fearlessly. He snorted coldly and said, "The three of you aren't even half-step into the ultimate Emperor realm. Do you really think you can stop me? Go. All we need to do is to stall for some time." Chen Chen gestured with his eyes and the three of them formed a triangle around Zhuowen. Immediately, an extremely terrifying destructive energy poured out of their bodies. "What? Are you guys crazy? You chose to self-destruct." When he sensed the mournful aura coming from the three of them, Zhuowen's expression changed slightly. He took a step in the air and intended to leave the area surrounded by the three of them. Unfortunately, the three of them combined self-destruct for too short a time. By the time Zhuowen reacted, the three of them had already self-destructed. Boom, boom, boom. 3 terrifying explosions rumbled, and the terrifying energy of the explosions enveloped Zhuowen like an endless tsunami. "Let's go quickly." Although Chen Chen and the other two's self-destruction is powerful, it's not enough to kill Zhuowen. Let's take advantage of this time and quickly enter the 4th floor. When Chen Chen and the other two self-destructed, Feng Long sighed softly. Then, he grabbed Zhou Li's hand and was about to step into the entrance of the 4th floor. "Feng Long, I didn't expect you to become so ruthless. Chen Chen and the other two have always obeyed your every word and even worshipped you, but at this moment, you abandoned them and even sent them to their deaths. At that time, if that Zhuowen chases after us again, are you going to use me as a shield to stop that Zhuowen?" Zhou Li shook off Feng Long's hand and stared straight at Feng Long with her beautiful eyes, as if it was the first time she had met the man she had always admired. Hearing this, Feng Long's face turned ugly. He glanced coldly at Zhou Li and said, "Those who achieve great things don't bother about trifles. I'm doing this for our 9-Dragon City to achieve good results in the Vitality Tower. Since you don't agree, I won't force you." With that, Feng Long stepped forward and directly entered the entrance of the 4th floor. Rumble. In the explosion area not far away, terrifying lightning flashed. Zhuowen broke through the explosion area with the thunder wings on his back and rushed straight toward the 4th floor. Zhuowen's strength had reached the peak of the ultimate Emperor realm at this time, and the strength of his physical body was extremely abnormal. The self-destruction of Chen Chen and the other two did not affect him much at all. It only made him pause for a moment. Zhuowen ignored the dazed Zhou Li and directly entered the entrance of the 4th level. He absolutely couldn't allow Feng Long to reach the altar. Otherwise, all his efforts from before would be completely wasted, and he'd done all his work for Feng Long. The 4th floor was a rather spacious plaza. There were 4 black iron pillars that were as thick as 3 people sitting around the plaza, and there was a pitch-black altar at the center of the plaza. At this moment, Feng Long was standing in front of the altar, holding the black heart with both hands, and he was about to place it on the altar. "Feng Long!" With a loud shout, Zhuowen stomped his foot on the ground, and his entire body transformed into a bolt of lightning that flashed directly towards the sacrificial altar at the center. His speed had practically arrived at an astonishing level. In front of the altar, Feng Long also noticed Zhuowen rushing behind him. The corners of his mouth curled up and he laughed mockingly. "Zhuowen! It's too late, the control of the Sandstone Island is mine." After saying that, Feng Long directly placed the black heart in the groove above the altar. In just an instant, the originally dim altar suddenly burst out with an extremely dazzling dark light, overflowing in all directions. Boom! A powerful force spread in all directions in a ring shape. Zhuowen, who was rushing toward the center of the square, suddenly flew backward under the effect of this force. He retreated more than 100 meters before coming to a stop. His expression was extremely ugly. I didn't expect that I was still one step too late. In the end, Feng Long actually took advantage of me. Staring at Feng Long, who was in the center of the square, Zhuowen couldn't help but smile bitterly. He knew that once the altar on the 4th level was activated, it was basically impossible to change anything. Haha. Zhuowen, in terms of talent and strength, you are indeed one in a million. It's just a pity that your luck is a little too bad. Are you very unwilling to accept this? You worked so hard to kill the Lord of Hell, but in the end I took advantage of you. At this moment, with the black altar as the center, a hexagonal black barrier appeared in a radius of tens of meters. Feng Long stood within the barrier and looked at Zhuowen, who was not far away, with a hint of provocation in his eyes. Zhuowen didn't reply. He just stared coldly at Feng Long and said, "Feng Long, do you really think that I can't do anything to you in the altar?" After saying that, Zhuowen took a step forward and instantly arrived in front of the black barrier. He suddenly punched out with his right fist, and waves of bloody flames accompanied by the fist force exploded on the black barrier. Rumble! The air trembled and whistled. When the fist force hit the barrier, the entire black barrier instantly began to tremble. Waves of air violently spread out. Feng Long, who was in the barrier, staggered under the tremors and almost fell. His eyes were filled with a trace of fear. He didn't expect Zhuowen to be so powerful that he could actually shake the seemingly sturdy black barrier. Could it be that Zhuowen can really shatter the black barrier? However, Feng Long's worries were unnecessary. Although the black barrier was on the verge of collapse under Zhuowen's attacks, it was still as sturdy as a pine tree. Only then did Feng Long feel much more at ease. "Zhuowen, don't waste your energy. This altar should be the core of the entire Sandstone Island. It gathers all the power of the entire Sandstone Island. Do you think that you can defeat the entire island by yourself?" After mocking Zhuowen a few more times, Feng Long no longer paid any attention to him. Instead, he began to observe the changes in the altar in front of him. At this time, he saw that the huge black heart, which was dozens of feet in size, was slowly being swallowed by the black altar. After the Lord of Hell's heart is completely swallowed, I should be able to become the ruler of this Sandstone Island. Feng Long muttered to himself as he stared at the black altar in front of him with anticipation. After a while, the black heart was finally swallowed by the altar. An extremely dense black energy surged out and completely enveloped Feng Long. Outside the barrier, Zhuowen furrowed his brows and thought to himself, "What a bad start. I actually got tricked by Feng Long. It seems that I'm going to be eliminated." At this time, Zhuowen's heart was filled with helplessness. His original plan was to enter the 100th place in the Vitality Tower and qualify to participate in the Battle of the Nine Counties. As long as he achieved good results in the Battle of the Nine Counties, he would be rewarded by the Qing Emperor and might even be recommended by the Qing Emperor to enter the Excellent Theology Academy. At the thought of the Excellent Theology Academy, Zhuowen couldn't help but recall that beautiful face. Could it be that his fate with Mu Qinshu would end here? Zhuowen knew very well that the Excellent Theology Academy was the second most powerful force in the Eastern Land. Without the recommendation of an Emperor realm expert like the Qing Emperor, it would be impossible for them to even qualify for the entrance examination. "Young man, this altar is a little strange. Feng Long looks like he's in extreme pain." Xiao Hei's voice suddenly rang in Zhuowen's mind just as his thoughts were running wild. Hearing this, Zhuowen raised his head slightly. His gaze passed through the black barrier and landed on Feng Long, who was standing in front of the altar. His expression suddenly became serious. Chapter 413. The Incubating Heart Sizzle. Endless black energy flowed into Feng Long's body like rivers flowing into the sea. Feng Long's body suddenly swelled up in a strange manner. His shrill shriek reverberated around the altar. It was extremely horrifying. "Brat, you didn't expect me to have such a trump card aside from the inner demon. Haha, even if you don't die under the test of the inner demon, you will definitely die on this altar. Suddenly, the Lord of the Underworld's venomous voice resounded in the space. Soon after, Feng Long, who was filled with black energy, swelled to the extreme. Rumble. An earth-shattering explosion suddenly rang out. Countless amounts of black energy splashed out in all directions like paste. Ripples spread out like water, and the black barrier that even Zhuo Wen could do nothing about collapsed inch by inch under the force of this explosion. What a powerful force! Zhuo Wen's pupils shrunk. His footsteps staggered as he continuously retreated. Only when he had retreated to the edge of the 4th floor did he stop his body. However, the aftershock of the explosion arrived first and blasted onto Zhuo Wen's body. Spurt! Zhuo Wen couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. His face was filled with shock. He didn't expect that even though he had retreated to the edge of the area, the aftermath of the explosion would still be so powerful. If he had been next to the altar, wouldn't he have been torn to pieces by the explosion? The smoke and dust that filled the sky gradually dispersed. The huge square in front of him had become a mess. The huge altar in the middle of the square had been turned into ruins by the force of the explosion. Feng Long's figure was nowhere to be seen. It was obvious that he had been turned into dust by the explosion. However, what surprised Zhuo Wen was that there was a black heart that was beating continuously above the ruins of the altar. It was the Lord of the Underworld's heart. The Lord of the Underworld's heart is really extraordinary. It was not damaged at all by the huge explosion just now. Looking at the black heart that was floating in the middle of the square, Zhuo Wen's face was filled with joy. In a flash, he appeared in front of the heart. The Lord of the Underworld is really cunning. He actually left such a trick up his sleeve. I'm afraid that the method of placing the heart on the altar was wrong. If it were you, the one who would have died would not have been Feng Long, but you. Speaking of which, Feng Long is your savior. He. Xiao He appeared beside Zhuo Wen and gloated. When he recalled that world-shaking explosion from before, Zhuo Wen couldn't help but be shocked to the point cold sweat broke out on his back. That explosion was truly too terrifying. Even if his physical body was formidable to the point of being comparable to an earthly rank spirit treasure, his chances of survival from that explosion were pitifully low. I really can't underestimate the Lord of the Underworld. The Underworld. Even after his death, he is the Underworld's studio. Studio is there? Shaking the Underworld's is there is? Studio is studio? Is studio? Just as Zhuo Wen was feeling extremely puzzled, the black heart in front of him slowly floated up. Waves of purplish-black aura drifted out from the heart. Clang! The 4 enormous metal pillars around the square suddenly emitted a metallic sound. Immediately, numerous densely cold chains flew out from within the metal pillars and restrained the black-colored heart. In an instant, the entire square was covered by a strange purple-black fog. Looking at the sudden change in the square, Zhuo Wen was at a loss for a moment. He could only stare blankly at the heart that was lingering in the purplish-black fog in the sky. I'm afraid this is the real way to control the entire Sandstone Island. I can sense that the energy contained in the purple-black mist is a lot gentler. It won't cause too much harm to your body. Xiao He suddenly said. Whoosh! Suddenly, the purplish-black fog that had been lingering around his heart suddenly spiraled downwards and drilled into Zhuo Wen's chest. Zhuo Wen did not resist the entry of the purplish-black fog because he could feel that when the fog entered his body was warm and there was an indescribable feeling of comfort. Plop, plop. As the purplish-black fog entered his body, Zhuo Wen realized that his body seemed to be nurturing a new heart. It was a heart that was much stronger than before. At this moment, it was beating vigorously in his body and was full of vitality. If Zhuo Wen were to examine his body at this moment, he would be surprised to find that the embryonic form of a heart was slowly taking shape in his right chest. Moreover, the strange thing was that this heart was purplish-black in color and was beating non-stop at this moment. Finally, all the purplish-black fog in the square was absorbed by Zhuowen. The black heart that was chained by the 4 chains in the sky had completely stopped beating. Moreover, it had shriveled up as if it had aged countless times in an instant. This is really amazing. The Hades King's heart actually has such a unique effect. After absorbing the vitality of the Hades King's heart, Zhuowen has actually nurtured another heart in his body. I wonder what effect this heart has on Zhuowen? Xiao Hei's divine thought entered Zhuowen's body and saw the various changes in his body clearly. Naturally, she also saw the purplish-black heart that was nurturing in Zhuowen's right chest. At the same time, Zhuowen slowly opened his eyes. His face was filled with joy. "Young man, do you feel anything after absorbing the Hades King's heart?" Xiao Hei quickly asked as she came over. "Haha. The Hades King's heart is indeed the key to controlling the Sandstone Island. After absorbing the vitality and energy in the heart, I feel like I have a clear grasp of the veins on the Sandstone Island. Moreover, I can clearly feel the heartbeats of all the creatures on the Sandstone Island. It's as if I can completely crush the hearts of all the creatures on the Sandstone Island if I want to." Zhuowen clenched his fists and said happily. This feeling of control gave Zhuowen a strange feeling. However, Zhuowen could only sense everything on the Sandstone Island. If he were outside the Sandstone Island, the prohibition outside would completely block his detection. "I'm afraid this is not the only benefit that the Hades King's heart brings, right?" Xiao Hei asked doubtfully. "Of course it's not the only benefit." A mysterious smile appeared on Zhuowen's face. Soon after, he patted his Qianquan bag and took out the Demon Moon Dragon spine spear. Under Xiao Hei's puzzled gaze, he directly chopped at his left arm. His left arm was immediately severed. However, to Xiao Hei's surprise, the flesh on Zhuowen's severed arm wriggled and instantly stopped bleeding. After that, a brand new arm slowly grew out from the severed arm at a speed visible to the naked eye. Apart from giving me control over the Sandstone Island, the Hades King's heart also has an extremely abnormal recovery ability. As long as the purplish-black heart in my right chest is not shattered, I can completely regrow my severed arm. Even if my real heart is pierced, as long as the purplish-black heart is not damaged, I will not truly die," Zhuowen said with bright eyes. Hearing this, Xiao Hei's expression finally changed. She had not expected the Hades King's heart to bring such a heaven-defying effect to Zhuowen. One must know that Zhuowen's physical body was already extremely abnormal and terrifying. If it was paired with such a heaven-defying recovery ability, Zhuowen's strength would double again. With this kind of recovery ability, as long as Zhuowen's weakness was not known by others, even if he were to meet LV Yongxing now, he would still be able to put up a fight. This is your biggest gain from entering the trial grounds this time. Even the Yuan Energy Ball cannot compare to the benefits that the Hades King's heart has brought you, Xiao Hei said with a smile. Since I've already gained control of the Sandstone Island, it's time to prepare to break through the sky and ascend. Come, let's leave the trial grounds first. Having said that, Zhuowen walked to the center of the square. Wisps of purplish-black energy flowed out from the purplish-black heart on the right side of his chest and gathered in the 4 iron pillars on the square. Suddenly, the entire Hades castle shuddered and rose from the ground, soaring into the sky above the trial grounds. The trial grounds were located below the sacred city. After absorbing the Hades King's heart, Zhuowen had indirectly become the owner of the Hades castle. Naturally, he could control the Hades castle to break through the trial grounds and ascend to the surface. At the center of the sacred city stood the magnificent Parthenon temple. Many people were waiting anxiously in the hall at the top of the temple, including Gu Xian and Hu Wuying. Saintess Alice, Priest Qiushui, the sacred city Lord Ottos, and a few maids were also in the hall. However, their faces were filled with worry and anxiety. Alice, do you really think that Zhuowen can get rid of the Hades King? It's not like you don't know the truth. The Lord of the Underworld wasn't sealed by my grandfather, Alice. Instead, the training grounds were built by the Lord of the Underworld. It was all for the sake of watching the people that we contributed enter the training grounds for his entertainment. Those people just now were all very strong. I'm afraid that they will directly provoke the Lord of the Underworld after entering the training grounds. If the Lord of the Underworld is angered, he will come to the surface to stir up trouble again. We will really be in trouble. Otto's eyes were filled with worry as he whispered to Alice beside him. His voice was very soft, and no one around him could hear his words. Only Alice could hear them clearly. You know that those people are too powerful. If we don't let them in, I'm afraid the entire sacred city will be destroyed by them. Do you think that's any different from infuriating the Hades King? Besides, I heard from priest Qiushui that Zhuowen once killed an evil creature of the Hades tribe. Maybe he really has the ability to kill the Hades King. As long as the Hades King is dead, our Sandstone Island will no longer be under his control. Alice replied softly. The Hades King is too powerful. I don't believe that Zhuowen has the ability to kill the Hades King. I think we should think about how to deal with the Hades King's fury first. Otto shook his head and smiled bitterly. Boom! Chapter 4:14. The Netherworld Castle. A few thousand meters away from the Holy City, there was a vast desert. Yellow sand was everywhere, and no one dared to go there. Suddenly, the vast desert began to tremble violently. Countless grains of yellow sand formed a terrifying sandstorm that wreaked havoc. Soon after, a huge hole appeared in the center of the desert. A black castle that was no smaller than the Holy City slowly emerged from the hole. Whoosh! The Netherworld Castle leaped out of the hole like a colossus and soared into the sky. Even though the Nether Castle couldn't be considered as a spirit artifact, its hardness wasn't inferior to a high-grade Earth-rank spirit artifact after it was modified by the Nether King. If he hid within the Nether Castle, then even a high-grade Earth-rank spirit artifact wouldn't be able to break through the defenses of the Nether Castle. The enormous Netherworld Castle was suspended high in the sky, and it immediately attracted the attention of countless members of the Lost Clan in the Holy City thousands of miles away. They looked up at the huge Netherworld Castle, and their faces were filled with horror. What is that thing? Why is it so huge? It looks like a castle from the outside. A castle that is as big as our holy city. A castle? That's impossible, right? How can a castle hover in the sky? Oh no, that thing is flying toward our holy city. The appearance of the Netherworld Castle immediately caused an uproar in the holy city. Every Lost Tribe member stared at the Netherworld Castle in the distance. Their eyes were filled with awe and curiosity. However, when the Netherworld Castle flew toward the Holy City, these Lost Tribe members immediately panicked. They were always in awe and fear of the unknown. The Holy City instantly fell into chaos. The people in the Parthenon Temple also noticed the commotion outside. They quickly walked out of the temple and saw the Netherworld Castle flying toward them. The Netherworld Castle? The Lord of the Underworld is driving the Netherworld Castle here. Our holy city is done for. The Lost Tribe is done for. After walking out of the Parthenon Temple, Otto immediately noticed the Netherworld Castle in the distance. His face instantly turned pale. Alice, who was following behind Otto, also had a terrible look on her face. She had obviously recognized the Netherworld Castle that was flying toward the Holy City. Could it be that Zhuowen and the others are no match for the Lord of the Underworld? Alice mumbled to herself with a pale face. Nether Castle? What's going on? Gu Xin and Hu Wuying, who had never heard of the Netherworld Castle, couldn't help but ask. The Netherworld Castle is the fortress of the Lord of the Underworld. The Lord of the Underworld rarely uses the Netherworld Castle. Since he's using it now, I'm afraid he's really furious. It seems like our vestigial clan is really doomed this time. Alice said with a miserable expression. On the Sandstone Island, Only she and Ottos knew the truth about the trial grounds. At the same time, they also knew how terrifying the Lord of the Underworld was. It's called the Netherworld Castle? Was the Netherworld King in that castle? What about Zhuowen and the others? Gu Xian frowned when she saw how dejected Alice and the others were. At the same time, she had an ominous feeling in her heart. Since the Netherworld King has appeared, then Zhuowen and the others are dead for sure. With the Netherworld King's personality, he'll never let the humans who entered the trial grounds go. Alice shook her head and said helplessly. Gu Xian and Hu Wuying were shocked when they heard this. Gu Xian frowned and retorted, Brother Zhua, we know Brother Zhua's strength the best. He won't die so easily. Otto sneered and said, You haven't seen the Netherworld King, so you don't know how terrifying he is. I'll tell you the truth. The Netherworld King's strength is superior to a legendary warrior. In other words, even a legendary warrior might not be a match for the Netherworld King. Do you think that Zhuowen has the strength to surpass a legendary warrior? Gu Xian and Hu Wuying were stunned when they heard this. A legendary warrior's strength was more than 1,000,000 pounds. Their strength was comparable to a warrior at the peak of the ultimate Emperor realm. If the Netherworld King's strength was superior to a legendary warrior, then Zhuowen really wouldn't be a match for him. Forget it. It's a waste of energy to tell you this. The Netherworld King has already sent the Netherworld Castle here. It's obvious that he's planning to destroy the sacred city. We won't be able to escape when the time comes. Otto shook his head and said dispiritedly. Whoosh! The Netherworld Castle was extremely fast. It arrived above the sacred city in the blink of an eye. The enormous castle almost blotted out the sun, dimming the sky above the sacred city. Creak! The gate of the Netherworld Castle slowly opened. A slender figure stepped out from the gate. It was a young man with black hair and black eyes, carrying a blood-red spear on his back. Everyone in the sacred city raised their heads and stared at the young man walking out of the Netherworld Castle. Their faces were filled with confusion. They didn't recognize the young man who had suddenly appeared. Zhuowen immediately saw Gu Xian, Hu Wuying, and the others below the Parthenon temple. His lips curled upward. With a stomp, he turned into a bolt of lightning and appeared below the Parthenon temple. When Ottos, Alice, and the others saw the young man standing at the gate of the Netherworld Castle, their faces were filled with shock, as if they had just seen a ghost. For a moment, the place fell into an eerie silence. That kid can't be the Netherworld King, right? I don't remember the Netherworld King having a clone like that. Otto swallowed his saliva and suddenly asked Alice. At that moment, Alice's expression was even worse than Otto's. She stared at the young man and said with trembling lips, That kid is Zhuowen. Why did he come out of the Netherworld Castle? Where's the Netherworld King? Could it be that the Netherworld King? Alice suddenly thought of an unbelievable possibility. Could it be that the Netherworld King was really dead? And he had died at the hands of the young man before her? Zhuowen? Could it be that the Netherworld King is really? Otto's eyes widened. He suddenly felt his mouth turning dry. The guess in his heart was too shocking. Whoosh! A bolt of lightning landed in front of everyone, revealing the young man with a smile on his face. Ha ha! It's really Zhuowen. I knew it. With your strength, how could Zhuowen have died in the trial ground? Gu Xian and Hu Wuying's eyes flickered. They quickly went up to Zhuowen. Their faces were filled with joy. They knew that since Zhuowen was standing in front of them, it meant that Zhuowen had completely taken control of the Sandstone Island. I'm sorry to have worried you too. This time, Zhuowen did not fail his mission and successfully took control of the Sandstone Island. Later, we will be able to use the Sandstone Island to break through the void and enter the second level of the Vitality Tower. At that moment, Zhuowen's face was filled with smiles. Gu Xian and Hu Wuying heard this and their faces were filled with joy. They did not expect that their small rattan armor city would have the opportunity to stand out from hundreds of thousands of forces and enter the second level of the Vitality Tower. If Gu Yutian knew about this, he would definitely be overjoyed. Eh? Brother Zhua, you've already broken through? Gu Xian quickly calmed down. At the same time, he could feel the faintly discernible aura exuding from Zhuowen's body. He could not help but ask in surprise. Yes, I had some opportunities in the trial ground, so I survived the heavenly tribulation and successfully advanced to the ultimate emperor realm. Zhuowen had never intended to hide his strength, so when Gu Xian asked, he naturally admitted it openly. Brother Zhua is indeed a genius. There are probably only a handful of people in the Qingxian Empire who can advance to the ultimate emperor realm at your age. Gu Xian and Hu Wuying hurriedly congratulated Zhuowen. At the same time, their admiration and reverence for Zhuowen grew. They knew that under the leadership of this young man, Rattan Armor City might be able to reach the pinnacle of glory. Zhuowen, why did you come out of the Netherworld Castle? Where's the Lord of the Netherworld? Just as Zhuowen, Gu Xian, and Hu Wuying were conversing with each other, a clear voice suddenly interrupted them. Tilting his head slightly, Zhuowen stared at Alice, who was slowly walking towards them. He smiled faintly and said, "The Saintess has dealt with the Lord of the Hades for so many years. I'm afraid she has already figured out the Lord of the Hades' temperament. Since I appeared in the Netherworld Castle and the Lord of the Hades is not here, then the Lord of the Hades is naturally dead. Otherwise, do you think the Lord of the Hades would have let me out?" As soon as Zhuowen spoke these words, Alice, Ottos, and the others gasped. Even though they were shocked and had some guesses when they saw Zhuowen, they still felt extremely shocked when Zhuowen admitted it frankly. The Lord of the Underworld had always been a huge threat to the Vestigial clan. After dealing with the Lord of the Underworld for many years, they were well aware of how terrifying the Lord of the Underworld was. After all, even Alice had fallen in the hands of the Lord of the Underworld. Of course, only Alice and Ottos knew about this secret. Zhuowen only found out that Alice had actually died thousands of years ago after meeting the Lord of the Underworld. The Saintess hid a lot of things from us back then, right? Back at the trial ground, I saw the Lord of the Hades with my own eyes. At that time, the Lord of the Hades' explanation was completely different from what you said. Moreover, I saw the Lord of the Holy City, Alice, in the trial ground. Perhaps you should give me an explanation. Zhuowen said in a deep voice as he stared at Alice. What? Lord Alice was in the trial ground? How is that possible? Lord Alice disappeared thousands of years ago. How could he be in the trial ground? Priest Xiushui asked in astonishment. I saw it with my own eyes. Moreover, Alice was controlled by the Lord of the Hades to attack us. However, he was destroyed by me in the end. Zhuowen shook his head and said indifferently, You said you destroyed Alice? Damn it, he was the previous Lord of the Holy City. At the same time, he was my ancestor. How dare you kill him? You bastard! Upon hearing that Alice had been destroyed by Zhuowen, Ottos was instantly unhappy. He glared at Zhuowen with his eyes wide open. Then, he stomped his foot and charged toward Zhuowen. He threw a punch at Zhuowen. Chapter 4:15. Rapid cultivation. My heart. Why does it hurt so much? Ottos lay on the ground, twitching uncontrollably. His face was full of fear. He did not know why, but his heart suddenly hurt. It felt as if a hand was squeezing his heart. Now that I'm the new ruler of the Sandstone Island, all of your lives are in my hands. Therefore, I think it's best if you don't act rashly. Zhuowen said indifferently with a grave expression. What? You've become the new ruler of the Sandstone Island? Is it because you killed the Lord of the Underworld? Alice stared straight at Zhuowen and could not help but ask. It seems that you, the Saintess, know more than I expected. However, I am not interested in your secrets, so you'd better not provoke me. Zhuowen looked at Alice meaningfully, causing her to lower her head guiltily. Then, Zhuowen kicked Ottos toward Alice and the others with his right foot. He then led Gu Xian and Hu Wuying into the sacred temple, You can rest assured that I, Zhuowen, am not interested in the Sandstone Island. I will not be as cruel as the Lord of the Underworld. I only need to borrow the power of the Sandstone Island to enter the second level of the Vitality Tower. Once you enter the second level of the Vitality Tower, you will be free. Zhuowen's voice rang out from the sacred temple. At this moment, Otto stood up awkwardly. His face was extremely gloomy. Although he hated Zhuowen, he did not dare to provoke him again. After all, as the ruler of the Sandstone Island, Zhuowen could kill him with a single thought. Ottos, you were too impulsive just now. Since Zhuowen has the ability to kill the Lord of the Underworld, how could you possibly fight against him? Even though Lord Alice is your ancestor, he did provoke the Lord of the Underworld and was refined into a living dead by the Lord of the Underworld. He is no different from a dead person now. Zhuowen killing Lord Alice will also free him. Alice sighed as she looked at Ottos, who was beside her. I was too impulsive just now. I won't do it again. Ottos took a deep breath and said calmly, Bear with it. This Zhuowen doesn't look like a tyrannical person. Moreover, he said that he won't be staying on the Sandstone Island for too long. Once he leaves the Sandstone Island, our entire vestigial race will be truly free. After all, without the Lord of the Underworld, the vestigial clan will not be restrained like before. Alice muttered with a complicated expression as she stared at the three figures who had disappeared into the sacred temple. Inside the Holy Temple's Holy Hall, there were three figures standing. They were Zhuowen and the other two who had entered the Holy Temple. Brother Zhuo, since you have taken control of the Sandstone Island, can you immediately take control of the Sandstone Island and go to the second floor? Gu Xian asked impatiently after arriving at the sacred hall. Yes. As long as I want to, I can immediately break through the sky and ascend, but I'm not in a hurry. You should know that the difficulty of the first floor of the Vitality Tower is already so exaggerated. I'm afraid that the second floor will not be easy. The two of you are too weak. If you immediately enter the second floor, I'm afraid that it will be inappropriate. Zhuowen shook his head and said. Gu Xian and Hu Wuying looked at each other and smiled bitterly. Although Zhuowen's words were a bit harsh, they were true. The two of them were indeed too weak. From the moment they entered the Vitality Tower until now, it seemed that they had been relying on Zhuowen to get to where they were now. Does Brother Zhuo have any way to increase our strength as soon as possible? However, their eyes soon flashed with a sharp light. They knew that Zhuowen had brought this up for a reason. It was very likely that he wanted to help them. Brother Gu, your strength should have reached the complete Earth King stage, right? You are only one step away from advancing to the Heavenly King stage. Brother Hu is slightly weaker, only at the complete Earth King stage. However, I can help all of you reach the half-step Ultimate Emperor realm in a month's time. Zhuowen said calmly as he nodded. What? In a month's time, all of us have reached the half-step Ultimate Emperor realm? This is too inconceivable, isn't it? Gu Xian and Hu Wuying's eyes widened and they stuttered. The two of them were still some distance away from the Ultimate Emperor stage. If they relied on normal cultivation, it would take them at least 5 years. However, Zhuowen said that it would only take a month for them to reach the Ultimate Emperor stage. This really shocked the two of them. You also know that the Yuan Qi concentration on this Sandstone Island is much higher than the outside world, and now that I've become the master of this island, as long as it's the Yuan Qi on this island, I'll be able to freely manipulate it. With my control, I can completely purify the Vitality Qi and make it even purer. Coupled with the fact that the Vitality Qi here is much denser than the outside world, I can still make the two of you reach the Ultimate Emperor stage within a month. Zhuowen said with a smile. Zhuowen was right. With his current status as the controller, as long as he was still on the Sandstone Island, then everything on the Sandstone Island would be under his control. Even the illusory Yuan Qi was no exception. If Zhuowen was outside the island, it would be quite difficult for him to purify the vitality chi. However, on the island, he had complete control over everything. Purifying the vitality chi was as simple as breathing for him. "Thank you, Brother Joie." Gu Xian and Hu Wuying smiled and hurriedly cupped their fist. Let's stay in the sacred hall for a month. When the time comes, I will set up a defensive restriction around this place to prevent anyone from disturbing us. After a month, we will set off for the second floor." With that, Zhuowen quickly set up several layers of restrictions around the sacred hall. Then, he began to mobilize the power of the purple-black heart and began to absorb all the vitality chi on the island. He gathered the vitality chi above the sacred temple and poured it into Zhuowen's body in the shape of a funnel. When the vitality chi entered Zhuowen's body, it was filtered by the purple-black heart, leaving behind the purest vitality chi. It dissipated into the sacred hall in a gaseous state, filling it with an extremely dense vitality chi. Gu Xian and Hu Wuying's faces lit up when they felt the vitality chi in the sacred hall suddenly become much denser. They hurriedly sat down on the ground and began to silently refine the vitality chi that had been purified by the purple-black heart. After being cleansed by the vitality chi, the purple-black heart's vitality has become even more vigorous. In the process of purifying the vitality chi, Zhuowen suddenly discovered that the purple-black heart's vitality was constantly increasing. Not only did it beat faster, but it also became more vigorous. It seems that the vitality chi on the island is very beneficial to the purple-black heart. This is a good thing for me. With such a discovery, Zhuowen naturally worked even harder to absorb the vitality chi on the island. He began to continuously purify the vitality chi. After all, the purple-black heart was very useful to Zhuowen now. Its abnormal recovery ability was an extremely important life-saving method for him. As long as the purple-black heart was not destroyed, Zhuowen's body would be immortal. Outside the Vitality Tower, whether it was the city lords in the 4 squares or the 5 magnates on the platform in the center of the square, they were all paying attention to the changes in the endless ocean. On the platform, Lu Nantian looked at the screen and said with a smile, "Time flies. It has been more than half a month since the opening of the Vitality Tower. Most of the thousands of islands in the endless ocean have successfully broken through to the second floor. There are still nearly 100 islands left in the endless ocean. The battle for the Vitality Tower this time is quite intense. There are actually quite a few teams from intermediate cities that defeated teams from advanced cities and successfully seized control of the island to enter the second floor of the Vitality Tower." Meteorite Garden Master continued with a faint smile. It is not uncommon for intermediate cities to defeat advanced cities in the past. Moreover, the teams from intermediate cities that have entered the second floor this time are the top 3 teams among all the intermediate cities. Their foundation is not weaker than the average advanced cities. It is not that rare for them to defeat ordinary advanced cities. Marquis Yongxing Qinye, who was so beautiful that he did not look like a man, said in a strange tone. Could it be that Brother Qin thinks that there is a possibility for low cities to defeat advanced cities? The chubby Marquis of Baichuan, Su Chong, laughed mischievously. The foundation of low cities is too weak. Even the low cities that are ranked at the top are not as strong as the advanced cities. The Vitality Tower battle has been going on for so many years, but this Marquis has never seen a low cities that can survive the first floor and enter the second floor. Of course, this year is no exception. Marquis Yongxing Qinye shook his head. However, I heard that a low-rank city called Rattan Armor City has produced a young half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. It seems that the young cultivator is only about 18 years old. Xian Yuanli, the sect master of the ruling sword sect, suddenly interjected. A low-rank city produced a young half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator? And he is only 18 years old? Brother Xian Yuanli, you must be joking. Marquis Yongxing Qinye said in disbelief. Everyone knew how weak the foundations of a low-level city were. It was already a miracle that a low-level city could nurture a heavenly king realm cultivator. As for a half-step ultimate emperor realm cultivator, he had never heard of any low-level city being able to nurture one. If Brother Qin does not believe me, you can retrieve the 1000 Knowledge Scroll from the Mundane Stage Plaza. That scroll clearly records everything. I have also heard my sect's disciples mention it before. Xian Yuanli stroked his long beard and said with a faint smile. Apart from Lu Nantian, everyone else was moved by Xian Yuanli's words. They knew that a cultivator who could reach the half-step ultimate emperor realm in a low-rank city had to be a monstrous talent. Moreover, he was only 18 years old. This was the reason why all the magnates were moved. If the information came from the 1000 Knowledge Scroll, then Brother Xian Yuanli's words are credible. However, I wonder what that young cultivator's name is? To be able to reach the half-step ultimate emperor realm in a low-rank city, that little guy must be a monstrous genius. Marquis Yongxing Qinye asked with a twinkle in his eyes. I think his name is Zhuowen, Xian Yuanli said while stroking his chin. Chapter 4:16. Wait and see. Qinglian, that little girl, seems to have mentioned this name before. Could it be the same person? The master of the meteorite murmured to herself. However, she quickly tossed that thought to the back of her mind. Although she was moved by the fact that Zhuowen was able to reach the half-step ultimate emperor realm at the age of 18, that was all. After all, the Qing Xian Empire was just too big, and there were many more people with monstrous talents than Zhuowen. With her status, she naturally wouldn't pay too much attention to someone like Zhuowen who she didn't even know. Brother Xianyuan, do you think that Rattan Armor City has the strength to enter the second level of the tower? The silent Lu Nantian suddenly stared at Xianyuan Li and asked. To be honest, having a half-step ultimate emperor realm cultivator is an extremely inconceivable matter for a low-level city. I've also paid attention to Rattan Armor City. They only have 3 members in their team. Aside from Zhuowen, who is exceptionally strong, the other 2 are just passable. With such a lineup, as long as they don't encounter a team that's too strong, it's still possible for them to enter the second level of the tower. Unfortunately, Xian Yuanli glanced meaningfully at Lu Nantian and continued, it's a pity that Rattan Armor City's team is assigned to an island with too many experts. Entering the second level of the tower is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. The moment Xian Yuanli said this, the other 3 magnates focused their attention on the light screen in the sky. After a brief search, they found Rattan Armor City on the Sandstone Island. I didn't think that the Sandstone Island would be assigned to teams from 4 high-level cities at the same time. What's more, there are teams from Thunder Universe City and Nine Dragon City, 2 of the top cities. Brother Xianyuan is right. Rattan Armor City won't be able to compete with Thunder Universe City and Nine Dragon City. After witnessing the strength of the Sandstone Island, the Magnate Chi practitioners shook their heads. They knew how strong the Nine Dragon City and the Thunder Universe City were. Although they weren't as strong as the super cities, they were far stronger than the ordinary high-grade cities. The 5 magnates on the stage only discussed for a short while before they stopped paying attention to the situation in Rattan Armor City. Although Zhuowen's talent was shocking, the 5 magnates had seen all kinds of geniuses over the years. Therefore, they were only curious at the beginning. The Mundane Stage Plaza below the high platform was still the most lively of the 4 large plazas. A large number of city lords from all over Muqin County were crowded in this relatively small plaza. In a secluded corner of the Mundane Stage Plaza, Gu Yutian, Lu Nanfeng, and Qin Huo were staring at the light screen in the sky with serious expressions. The battle for the Elemental Qi Pagoda is indeed Muqin County's greatest event. Just the first floor of the Elemental Qi Pagoda has lasted for so long. Unfortunately, our team from Blue Rock City has already been eliminated, the white-haired Lu Nanfeng said bitterly. Brother Lu, you don't have to worry. After all, our low-grade city's foundation is too weak. We can't compete with the high-grade and super cities. It's expected that we would be eliminated. Qin Hua, the city lord of Fiery Flame City, comforted. Brother Qin Hua is right. We're just trying our luck by participating in the battle for the Elemental Qi Pagoda. Guyu Tian also comforted Lu Nanfeng. When Zhuowen and the other two first entered the Elemental Qi Pagoda, Lu Nanfeng and Qin Hua met Guyu Tian because they were looking for a seat. After half a month of getting along, the three of them became quite close. You're right. Since the start of the Elemental Qi Pagoda competition, there has never been a case where a low-grade city passed the first floor. Lu Nanfeng nodded, then looked at Guyu Tian and said, "Sigh. Brother Gu, your Rattan Armor City should have the highest chance of entering the second floor. After all, your Rattan Armor City has a monstrous half-step ultimate Emperor Realm genius. Unfortunately, your luck is too bad. You were assigned to an island with 4 high-grade city teams. Your Rattan Armor City is truly unfortunate." Qin Hua also shook his head regretfully. Hearing the two's regretful words, a thick bitterness surfaced on Guyu Tian's face. Back then, when he had led Zhuowen and the other two, he had been in high spirits. He believed that with a monstrous genius like Zhuowen, there was still hope for their Rattan Armor City to enter the second level of the Yuan Qi Tower. Unfortunately, their luck was truly terrible to the extreme. They had met a formidable opponent at the first level of the Yuan Qi Tower. Perhaps this is the will of the heavens playing tricks on us. Guyu Tian shook his head helplessly. After inquiring about the strength of Thunder Universe City and Nine Dragons City, these two high-grade cities, Guyu Tian no longer held much hope for Zhuowen and the other two. Our Fiery Flame City team has also been eliminated, Qin Hua suddenly exclaimed, then smiled bitterly. Your Fiery Flame City team has been able to hold on until now. It's already very good. Lu Nanfeng patted Qin Hua's shoulder. Now, only Brother Gu's Rattan Armor City is left. It's already been half a month, but your Rattan Armor City still hasn't been eliminated. Perhaps you can advance to the second floor. Lu Nanfeng and Qin Hua both turned to Guyu Tian and said at the same time, "You don't have to comfort me. As the city lord of Rattan Armor City, I know very well what Zhuowen and the other two are capable of. Perhaps it won't be long before they're eliminated." Guyu Tian muttered bitterly. The Earth-level plaza was a kilometer away from the mortal-level plaza. Most of the people standing in the Earth-level plaza were the city lords of high-ranking cities. These city lords of high-ranking cities were gathered in groups of 3 to 5. In a rather conspicuous position in the middle of the square, 3 proud figures were standing. The gazes of the surrounding high-grade city lords were filled with fear and awe as they looked at the 3 figures. These 3 figures were the city lords of high-ranking cities. They were Lubang City's city lord, Tsing Han, Nine Dragon City's city lord, Feng Gong, and Thunder Universe City's city lord, Pang Lei. The 3 of them were the city lords of high-ranking cities. They were also famous experts in Muqin County. Their strength had basically reached the ultimate Emperor Realm. Although they were only at the first wheel of the ultimate Emperor Realm, they were already considered top experts in Muqin County. After all, there were very few ultimate Emperor Realm experts in Muqin County. I didn't expect the 3 strongest city lords of high-ranking cities to be gathered together. This is quite rare. Tsing Han, Feng Gong, and Pang Lei can be considered the top battle strength of high-ranking cities. Now that they're standing together, it's quite eye-catching. I heard that the 3 of them are on par with each other in terms of strength. Now that it's the Battle of the Vitality Tower, the 3 of them are probably competing with each other. After all, the 3 of them aren't on good terms with each other. Many cultivators around the Earth Stage Plaza focused their gazes on Tsing Han, Feng Gong, and Pang Lei in the center of the plaza as they discussed animatedly. Tsing Han was a middle-aged man with a fair face and no beard. He wore a long green robe and had the elegant temperament of a scholar. However, those who were familiar with Tsing Han knew that this was only his appearance. If it was a battle, Tsing Han would be more ruthless and merciless than anyone else. Even Feng Gong and Pang Lei were quite afraid of this seemingly harmless Tsing Han. Feng Gong was Feng Long's father. His temperament was similar to Feng Long's. He looked gloomy, making people feel uncomfortable. Pang Lei was the exact opposite of Feng Gong. His muscles were bulging and his short white hair stood up. There was a faint flash of lightning at the tip of his hair. At first glance, one could tell that he had a fiery temper. Brother Feng, Brother Pang, your luck isn't too good. The two teams have actually been assigned to the same island. I'm afraid that the Sandstone Island will really be an extremely difficult struggle. Tsing Han smiled faintly, glancing at Feng Gong and Pang Lei as she said with a smile. Brother Tsing, what do you mean by this? Are you gloating over our misfortune? Feng Gong's face was gloomy and he said to Tsing Han with some dissatisfaction. Brother Feng, don't misunderstand. This Tsing just feels that it's a pity. You must know that the strength of your 9 Dragon City and Brother Pang's Thunder Universe City is superior to many high-grade cities. Now that they have encountered each other, I'm afraid. Tsing Han stopped and said indifferently, after all, a mountain can't accommodate 2 tigers. Brother Tsing doesn't need to worry about this matter. Our Thunder Universe City will be the one to successfully enter the 2nd floor of the Spirit Tower. Their 9 Dragons City will be eliminated this time. Pang Lei's muffled voice was filled with confidence. Brother Pang is really confident. Aren't you afraid that the wind will bite your tongue? In terms of cultivation, our Feng Long can break through to the ultimate Emperor realm at any time. In terms of strength, your Thunder Universe City's Pang Tong was defeated by Feng Long. Tell me, what does your Thunder Universe City have to compete with our 9 Dragons City? Don't tell me you think you can win just because you talk big in front of me? Feng Gong sneered sinisterly. Feng Gong, watch your words. Do you think that you're so great just because your cultivation is high? You're just a half-step ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. Our Thunder Universe City's Thunder Light Body Tempering technique is far stronger than ordinary cultivators after reaching the half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm. Before entering the Spirit Tower, Pang Tong had already reached the Thunder Light Body Tempering technique. If the two of them fight, I'm afraid that Feng Long won't have much of an advantage. Pang Lei took a step forward and a python-like lightning wrapped around his body. He stared coldly at Feng Gong. Still want to quibble? Your Thunder Universe City's Thunder Light Body Tempering technique is indeed good, but Pang Tong's cultivation is too low. How much power can he exert? Feng Gong was not to be outdone. A cold aura gushed out of his body as he stared at Pang Lei. Both of you, arguing at this time is a little unnecessary. Only 9 Dragons City and Thunder Universe City are left on the Sandstone Island. Moreover, half a month has already passed since the Spirit Tower battle. I'm afraid the results of the Sandstone Island will be out soon. When the time comes, we'll know who will have the last laugh. Tsing Han stood between the two of them with a smile on his face and a kind expression on his face. The two of them glanced at Tsing Han with fear and snorted coldly. They didn't continue to argue. Instead, they stared at the light screen in the sky. Chapter 4:17. The result time flew by and in the blink of an eye, nearly 3 days had passed. During these 3 days, pillars of light would emerge from the Origin Chi Tower from time to time. These pillars of light contained the figures of the contestants who had survived the Origin Chi Tower and had been eliminated. After 3 days, the 1,000 islands in the boundless ocean on the first floor of the Origin Chi Tower had basically all ascended to the 2nd floor. Only one island remained unmoved, and that was the Sandstone Island. Everyone outside the Origin Chi Tower focused their attention on the information on the last island. They were clearly surprised that there was no movement on this island at all. 4 groups from high-grade cities have actually appeared on this final sandstone island at the same time. However, there are only 2 groups left at this moment. Looks like the ownership of this sandstone island should be decided between 9 Dragon City and Thunder Universe City. On the tall platform, LV Nantion had also noticed the situation on this final island. He faintly smiled as he spoke. 9 Dragons City and Universe City, these 2 high-class cities, have extremely strong foundations. Although they can't compare to a super city, they are very close. These 2 seeded teams have encountered each other on the first floor. I have to say that their luck isn't too good. The master of the meteorite shook his head. Did the 2 of you forget about the other team? Apart from 9 Dragons City and Universe City, there is also a team from Rattan Armor City. Xian Yuanli, the leader of the Imperial Sword Sect, pointed at the information on the screen and smiled. Oh? But the team from Zhuowen City? However, as far as I know, both 9 Dragons City and Universe City have several half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators in their teams. Does Brother Xian Yuan think that Rattan Armor City has the strength to contend with these 2 teams from high-class cities? Lu Nantion said with a calm expression. Although I don't think that Rattan Armor City can contend with 9 Dragon City and Universe City, the fact that Rattan Armor City has been able to persist until now is probably not simple. However, I am becoming more and more curious about Zhuowen. Xian Yuanli said with a slight smile. It seems that Brother Xian Yuan intends to take Zhuowen as a disciple of the Imperial Sword School? When LV Nantion heard this, he frowned slightly and said. He did not expect that Xian Yuanli would repeatedly display such a strong interest in Zhuowen. In truth, Lu Nantion had noticed Zhuowen a long time ago. He'd heard about the battle between Zhuowen and Lu Yuanhua in the Mortal Pavilion. What surprised him was that a mere half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator like Zhuowen was actually able to take on a first-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator like Lu Yuanhua. After hearing about this, Lu Nantion immediately concealed this matter. This also caused the other 4 authorities to not notice Zhuowen's uniqueness. The reason why Lu Nantion deliberately concealed Zhuowen's matter was because he treasured talent. As the strongest expert in Muqin County, Lu Nantion's breadth of mind was not something an ordinary person could compare to. Although he knew that Zhuowen and Lu Yuanhua had some conflicts, as long as it wasn't a life-and-death feud, this conflict could basically be resolved. Lu Nantion was an ambitious and ruthless person. He would not ignore the overall situation because of personal grudges. It was precisely because of Zhuowen's stunning performance that Lu Nantion was even more curious about Zhuowen. He wanted to see the limits of this youth from a low-level city, so he deliberately arranged for him to be on the Sandstone Island. Of course, he was quite satisfied with the current situation. Zhuowen had not been eliminated in the teams from 9 Dragons City and Thunder Universe City. This already showed that Zhuowen was not simple. Zhuowen's talent could be said to be catching up to Lui Tao. With such talent, if he was accepted into the house of Marquis Qin and focused on training, although his strength would not be comparable to Lui Tao's in a short period of time, it would not be a problem for him to reach the level of his second son, Lu Yongxing. Therefore, even if Zhuowen was eliminated in the first layer of the Vitality Tower, Lu Nantion planned to accept him into the house of Marquis Qin and train him as a core disciple. Now, the house of Marquis Qin urgently needed talent. After all, the Battle of the 9 Counties, which was related to the honor of Muqin County, was not far away. He had to do his best to train powerful geniuses, and the best way to select geniuses was none other than the Vitality Tower battle. This was a grand event that gathered countless young geniuses in Muqin County. Every time such a grand event was held, the 5 superpowers of the county would choose the geniuses they wanted to nurture. Now that Lu Nantion saw that Lu Nantion was so interested in Zhuowen, he naturally felt a little uncomfortable. After all, this was the first genius he had taken a fancy to. Oh? Looking at Brother Lu's expression, it seems that you are also interested in Zhuowen? Hehe, although this Zhuowen's strength is not very strong, his talent is exceptional. This one indeed has the intention of accepting him as a disciple. Xian Yuanli looked meaningfully at Lu Nantian and said with a faint smile. Squinting his eyes, Lu Nantian suddenly laughed and said, "This Lu has always thought that Brother Xuanyuan's vision was very high. I did not expect that you would take a fancy to a warrior from a low-level city. This Lu is a little surprised. However, whether Zhuowen will enter your Imperial Sword School or not is not up to Brother Xianyuan. It is up to Zhuowen's decision. It seems that Brother Lu is also somewhat interested. However, Brother Lu, what you said is also reasonable. Whether Zhuowen stays or leaves is really not up to us to decide. It is up to Zhuowen himself to decide," Xian Yuanli said with a faint smile. The Master of the Meteorite, Marquis Yongxing, and Marquis Baichuan looked at Xian Yuanli and Lu Nantian with some surprise. The three of them did not expect that Lu Nantian and Xian Yuanli would both want to accept Zhuowen as a disciple. This made the three of them very puzzled. Although Zhuowen had relied on the resources of a low-level city to reach the half-step ultimate emperor realm and his talent was not bad, it was not enough to make these two giants fight over him. The Master of the Meteorite and the other two did not know about the battle between Zhuowen and Lu Yuanhua. Therefore, they did not know how powerful Zhuowen's talent was. This was also the reason why Lu Nantian wanted to accept Zhuowen into the house of Marquis Qin. As for Xian Yuanli, he had sharply observed Lu Nantian's strange expression. Therefore, he only mentioned Zhuowen to test him. However, he did not expect that the Lu Nantian would care so much about Zhuowen. Coupled with Zhuowen's extraordinary performance, he guessed that Zhuowen was definitely not ordinary. Therefore, he naturally wanted to accept him as a disciple. After all, after every battle for the Vitality Tower, the 5 major powers would frantically recruit many selected geniuses. It would not make much difference if Zhuowen was added. Whoosh! At this moment, a beam of light suddenly shot out from the Vitality Tower and landed on the ground at the bottom of the tower. Whoosh! 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 Countless eyes gathered on this beam of light. They knew that the results of the Sandstone Island, the last island in the endless ocean, were about to be announced. However, they did not know which team would be eliminated this time. There are only 3 teams left on the Sandstone Island. This time, the team that will be eliminated from the Vitality Tower should be Tingjia City. After all, Tingjia City only has 3 members in their team. They are not at the same level as 9 Dragon City and Thunder Universe City. The Master of the Meteorite chuckled. On the high platform, the other 4 magnates nodded in agreement. The difference between a low-level city and a high-level city was extremely huge. Although there was a monstrous genius like Zhuowen leading the team, the strength of an individual was ultimately limited. However, the fact that Tingjia City was able to hold on until now is enough to prove that Zhuowen is not ordinary. Xian Yuanli finally praised Zhuowen. In the Earth Stage Plaza, when Pang Lei and Feng Gong noticed the beam of light, they both held their breaths and narrowed their eyes. They wanted to see the figure in the beam of light clearly. Brother Peng, Brother Feng, the two of you are too nervous. This beam of light definitely does not belong to 9 Dragon City or Thunder Universe City. I'm afraid it should be from Tingjia City. Xinghan shook his head and said. When Pang Lei and Feng Gong heard this, they both noticed that there were still 3 teams left on the Sandstone Island. 2 of them should be 9 Dragons City and Thunder Universe City, and the last one should be Tingjia City. We were making a fuss just now. Brother Tsing, please forgive us. However, what I find strange is that even Green Dragon City and Jeju City, which are slightly weaker high-level cities, have been eliminated early on. How could there be a team from a low-level city that can still hold on until now? This is really strange. Feng Gong shook his head and smiled, then said with some doubt. Hee. I'm afraid that the team leader of Tingjia City is a complete coward. The moment he entered the Sandstone Island, he immediately found a place to hide. That's how he managed to hold on until now. Pang Lei crossed his arms and sneered. Pang Lei did not think that Tingjia City, which was only a low-level city, had relied on their strength to hold on until now. In their opinion, the possibility of that was almost zero. Brother Pang's words make some sense. The so-called geniuses sent by low-level cities are just a joke to us. In the Vitality Tower, these geniuses from low-level cities are like cannon fodder. However, the funny thing is that those low-level cities still overestimate themselves and send their so-called geniuses every time. They are simply here to die. Feng Gong nodded and said, "The two of you don't need to say any more. That beam of light will soon lose its brilliance. At that time, we will know whether Tingjia City is inside or not." Xing Han smiled. Hearing this, Pang Lei and Feng Gong's gazes converged on the beam of light again. However, the atmosphere between the two of them was not as tense as before. Whoosh! The white light slowly dissipated, and a burly figure covered in cuts and bruises appeared in front of everyone. This was a young man in his 20s with short silver hair. His clothes were ragged and he was covered in wounds. He looked extremely miserable. This is Pang Tong? At this moment, the originally relaxed Pang Lei and Feng Gong were stunned. Even the smile on Xing Han's face, who was standing between the two of them, froze at this moment. The five magnates on the high platform also focused their gazes on this figure. When they realized that this figure was not the Zhuoan they had expected, their faces became a little stiff. Then, their gazes converged on the light screen in the sky again. Chapter 4:18. Covered in cuts and bruises, Tong. A bestial roar erupted from the Earth Stage Plaza. A terrifying figure made of lightning shot out and arrived before Pang Tong, who was covered in cuts and bruises at the bottom of the tower. Tong, who beat you up like this? Was it Feng Long? Pang Lei's eyes were filled with killing intent as he supported Pang Tong, who was on the verge of collapse. Father! Feng Long broke through in the origin tower. At this moment, Pang Tong was extremely weak. After all, he'd taken Feng Long's full-force attack head-on. That was the full-force attack of an ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. If he was an ordinary half-step ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator, he probably would have died a long time ago. He actually broke through to the ultimate Emperor Realm. What a damned little bastard! Pang Lei flew into a rage when he heard this. Fortunately, he was still rational and quickly helped Pang Tong up. He took out a spirit medicine that could restore energy from his Qiankuan pouch and crushed it into liquid before sending it into Pang Tong's mouth. He repeated this several times before finally stabilizing Pang Tong's injuries. Although Pang Tong's voice wasn't loud, everyone present was a city lord. Naturally, their hearing wasn't bad and they clearly heard what Pang Tong said. I never thought that Nine Dragon City's Feng Long would successfully overcome his tribulation and break through to the ultimate Emperor Realm. Looks like Nine Dragon City will definitely get a good ranking in the Origin Tower battle. Originally, Feng Long wasn't much stronger than Pang Tong. But now that he has broken through to the ultimate Emperor Realm, he's transformed from a sparrow into a phoenix. He has truly entered the ranks of the top experts in Muqin County and has the ability to compete with the geniuses from the super cities. I'm so envious. Doesn't that mean Nine Dragon City has 2 ultimate Emperor Realm experts? It looks like Nine Dragon City has hope of becoming a super city. An uproar rose in the 4 large squares. Everyone was filled with envy as they stared at Feng Gong, who was still pleasantly surprised in the middle of the Earth Stage Plaza. Brother Feng, you're really lucky. Nine Dragon City's Feng Long actually broke through to the ultimate Emperor Realm in the Origin Tower. Xing Han looked at Feng Gong with a complicated expression. He hadn't expected that Feng Long of Nine Dragon City would be the first to break through to the ultimate Emperor Realm. Feng Gong was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. When he heard Pang Tong say that Feng Long had broken through to the ultimate emperor realm, he felt his mind go blank. Then, he was struck speechless by the boundless excitement and joy. Brother Tsing is too courteous. Longer was just lucky. Feng Gong cupped his hands and said with a beaming face, Brother Feng, you're being too modest. Since Feng Long has also broken through to the ultimate emperor realm, then your Nine-Dragon City is the undisputed #1 city among the high-rank cities. After all, only Nine-Dragon City can have 2 ultimate emperor realm experts at the same time. Sing Han said with envy. Feng Gong laughed out loud. Just as he was about to speak, a violent gust of wind suddenly swept over from afar and directly blasted towards his face. Boom! With a gloomy expression, Feng Gong clasped his hands together and blocked the gust of wind. Then, he let out a muffled groan and staggered back a dozen steps before he could stabilize himself. Pang Lei, what are you trying to do? Feng Gong stared coldly at the enraged Pang Lei as he steadied himself. What am I trying to do? You still have the nerve to ask such a question? Pang Tong was beaten to the brink of death by Feng Long of your Nine-Dragon City, and several other members of my Nine-Dragon City died. I, Pang Lei, will not let this matter rest. Pang Lei's breathing was heavy as he glared at Feng Gong with burning rage. Laughable. Deaths and injuries are unavoidable in the battle for the Origin Chi Tower. Since Pang Tong of Thunder Universe City was inferior, he can't blame anyone even if Long-Er killed him. Since Pang Tong is still alive, it means that Long-Er has already shown mercy. You actually dare to ask for an explanation in front of me? Feng Gong's eyes were gloomy as he spoke eerily. Show mercy? Show mercy? What a good show. Feng Gong, you're going to die. Hearing this, Pang Lei became even angrier. He stomped his foot and countless lightning bolts gushed out, rushing straight toward Feng Gong. At this time, Pang Lei had lost all reason, which gave Feng Gong a headache. However, his strength was on par with Pang Lei, so he was naturally not afraid of a fight. He snorted coldly and released a powerful aura without showing any weakness, preparing to fight with Pang Lei. Thunder Universe City's City Lord Pang Lei actually fought with Feng Gong directly. It seems that Pang Tong's injuries are not light. Otherwise, Pang Lei wouldn't be so angry. Nonsense, Pang Tong is in a state of near death. You say his injuries are not heavy? With Pang Lei's fiery temper, it's natural for him to go straight to Feng Gong. However, I think the 5 lords on the high platform won't let the 2 of them fight. After all, private fights are prohibited here. The sounds of discussion rang out. The gazes of all the city lords on the 4 large plazas were attracted by Pang Lei and Feng Gong, and they commented from time to time. Sure enough, when the battle between Pang Lei and Feng Gong was about to break out, a fierce aura suddenly burst out from the high platform. It was like a towering mountain that fiercely suppressed the 2 of them, causing them to be unable to move. The battle for the Vitality Tower is a matter of life and death. Injuries and deaths are inevitable. This has already been stipulated. If the 2 of you dare to fight like this again, then don't blame me for being impolite. Lu Nanshan's deep voice came from the high platform. It was full of energy and lingered in the air. When the voice dissipated, the suffocating aura also retreated like the tide. Pang Lei and Feng Gong immediately regained their ability to move, and their faces were filled with deep reverence. They knew that just now should be a warning from Marquis Lu Nantian. If the 2 of them continued to fight like this, they would probably be obliterated. Thank you for your advice, Marquis Lu. The 2 of us won't dare to do this again. The 2 of them respectfully bowed to the high platform, and then glared at each other fiercely before returning to the Earth Stage Plaza. Why do the 2 of you act like your mortal enemies? Since Pang Tong didn't die, it means that Feng Long should have been merciful. Otherwise, with the huge gap between an Ultimate Emperor realm and a half-step Ultimate Emperor realm, Pang Tong shouldn't have been able to come out alive. Sing Han smiled faintly and quickly stepped forward to act as a mediator. When the two of them heard this, their expressions eased slightly. After all, there was not much difference in strength between them, so there was no need to make things too difficult. Brother Pang, you let me win. It seems that your Thunder Universe City has no chance of participating in this year's Vitality Tower battle. Feng Gong laughed sinisterly. Feng Gong, are you so confident that your Nine Dragons City will be the final winner? You should know that Nine Dragons City is not the only team on the Sandstone Island right now. Pang Lei's expression was ugly, but due to the rules here, he didn't dare to act out and coldly replied. Could it be that Brother Pang thinks that a lowly Rattan Armor City can defeat our Nine Dragons City? But didn't Brother Pang say that the reason Rattan Armor City was able to hold on until now was because they didn't dare to come out as soon as they entered the Sandstone Island? Why have you changed your opinion now? Feng Gong sneered. Pang Lei snorted coldly and didn't say anything else. He had indeed said that just now, but now that Feng Gong had used it to smash his own foot, he was suddenly speechless. Although he didn't want to admit it, he knew that the control of the Sandstone Island belonged to Nine Dragons City. He had never cared about Rattan Armor City. The only reason he had said that just now was because he was unwilling to accept it. Whoosh! Another beam of light shot out from the Essence Chi Pagoda, which immediately caused an uproar among the crowd. On the high platform, Lu Nantian calmly said, "Another beam of light has appeared. It seems that the remaining two teams on the Sandstone Island have already decided the result. This beam of light should be the team from Rattan Armor City. To be able to hold on until now, Rattan Armor City's team has really exceeded my expectations." Xian Yuanli stroked his long beard and said with satisfaction. He had originally intended to take Zhuowen as his disciple, so naturally, he hoped that Zhuowen's performance would be as outstanding as possible. Now, it seemed that Zhuowen's performance had indeed satisfied him. The other three giants also nodded. As people who stood at the top of Muqin County, they knew very well how big the gap between a low-rank city and a high-rank city was. Furthermore, Nine Dragons City was an extremely powerful existence among high-rank cities. Rattan Armor City's elimination at the last moment had indeed moved them quite a bit. In the four squares, countless city lords were also staring at the beam of light. Although they knew that it was very likely that Rattan Armor City was inside the beam of light, they still looked forward to it. This was because it was extremely rare for a low-rank city to be able to hold on until now. Therefore, they all wanted to see what the genius from Rattan Armor City was like. Among them, the most relaxed one was Feng Gong. On the Sandstone Island, Feng Long's biggest opponent should be the team from Thunder Universe City. Since the team from Thunder Universe City had already been eliminated, the final result was without a doubt that it would belong to Nine Dragons City. Although he was already certain in his heart, Feng Gong still focused his gaze on the beam of light. He also wanted to see what the genius from Rattan Armor City was like. Whoosh! The white light gradually faded, and a graceful figure slowly appeared at the bottom of the Vitality Tower. It was a graceful woman in red. At this moment, the woman looked around with a blank expression. After discovering her surroundings, a trace of bitterness appeared on her pretty face. She knew that she had been completely eliminated. Whoosh! 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 Countless gazes suddenly gathered on the woman in red. These gazes were filled with a trace of doubt. They remembered that in the records on the light screen, there were only 3 people in Rattan Armor City's team. Moreover, they should be 3 men. These gazes shifted towards the light curtain in the sky while carrying this trace of doubt. Immediately, the entire square descended into a strange silence. Moreover, this silence was accompanied by the sound of people inhaling cold air one after another. Chapter 419. Scramble what? It wasn't Tingjia City that was eliminated, but Nine Dragons City? What's going on? Isn't Tingjia City a low-level city? How come Nine Dragons City was eliminated? What happened to the Sandstone Island? This is unbelievable. In this year's Origin Chi Tower battle, a low-level city actually managed to defeat a high-level city. This is something that has never happened in so many years. The uproar was like an avalanche, rising continuously in the square. Many city lords could not help but rub their eyes and look again at the light screen in the distance, thinking that they had seen wrongly. However, after looking at it a few times, they finally did not doubt the result on the light screen. One could imagine how intense the shock in their hearts was. On the high platform, Lu Nantian and the other 4 magnates narrowed their eyes when they saw the result. Even they didn't expect Tingjia City to advance. We still underestimated that Zhuowen. He actually defeated 9 Dragons City's team. How amazing! Lu Nantian shook his head as his eyes flashed. Haha. Pang Tong just said that 9 Dragon Cities Feng Long successfully broke through his bottleneck in the Vitality Tower and reached the Ultimate Emperor Realm. To be able to defeat Feng Long, who is already in the Ultimate Emperor Realm, Zhuowen must also be in the Ultimate Emperor Realm. What a genius! This kid is only 18 years old, right? TSK. Xian Yuanli didn't hide his praise. This result is indeed out of everyone's expectations. This young man named Zhuowen's talent is indeed extraordinary. No wonder Brother Lu and Brother Xian Yuan thought so highly of this Zhuowen. Haha, recently, my Jade Lady Star Court needs a few male disciples. This Zhuowen is very pleasing to my eyes, so I won't be polite. The Master of the Meteorite covered her mouth and giggled. Hearing the Master of the Meteorite's words, Lu Nantian and Xian Yuanli's expressions changed slightly. They knew that Zhuowen's performance was too dazzling, so the Master of the Meteorite wanted to interfere. They couldn't help but curse the former for being cunning and shameless. Little Sister Meteorite, you're wrong. That Zhuowen must be a handsome man. He's probably more suitable for our Yongxing Marquis. Qin Nye, who was a little sissy, also spoke. He winked at the Master of the Meteorite, causing the latter's expression to darken. Brother Qin, you haven't even seen Zhuowen. How do you know that Zhuowen is a handsome man? In my opinion, as long as one is a man, they will worship strength. Everyone in our house of Marquis of Baichuan is a brave warrior with great strength. That Zhuowen is a young man full of vigor and vitality. I'm afraid he is most suitable for our house of Baichuan. The fat and round Marquis of Baichuan, Su Chong, interrupted loudly. At this moment, the 5 magnates on the high platform were somewhat moved by Zhuowen, who they had never met before. They were very clear about the strength of the 9 Dragons City team. Even the teams from high-rank cities were just nobodies in front of the 9 Dragons City team. They were extremely strong. Moreover, Feng Long had advanced to the Ultimate Emperor Realm in the Yuan Chi Tower. But even so, he was still eliminated. What did this mean? This meant that Tingjia City, which was still on the Sandstone Island, was still stronger than 9 Dragons City. The leader of Tingjia City, Zhuowen, was even stronger than Feng Long. Moreover, that Zhuowen was only around 18 years old. He was so young and came from a low-rank city. Moreover, he was an Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator with decent strength. Such a genius was rare even among the 5 superpowers. This was also the reason why the 5 magnates were so interested in Zhuowen. Alright, there's no need to argue anymore. It's not up to us to decide which power Zhuowen will join. That Zhuowen will decide for himself. Even if you fight until you break your heads, he won't necessarily agree right now. Lu Nantian said in a low voice. The moment Lu Nantian's words came out, the people on the high platform stopped arguing. After all, Lu Nantian was the strongest of the 5, so they would still give him face. Brother Lu is right. It won't be too late to talk about it after the battle for the Vitality Tower. At the bottom of the Vitality Tower, Zhou Li, who had just been teleported out, quickly sensed the gazes of countless people around her. Her delicate nose wrinkled slightly. She didn't like the feeling of being stared at, so she lightly stepped on the ground and directly flew towards the Earth Stage Plaza. How could Zhou be teleported out? How could our 9 dragons city be eliminated? That's impossible. In the center of the plaza, Feng Gong's pupils shrank to the size of needles. He looked at Zhou with a face full of disbelief and muttered in a low voice. Xinghan and Pang Lei were also stunned by this result, but the two quickly regained their calm. Although they didn't know what had happened on the Sandstone Island, they knew that 9 Dragons City had also been eliminated. Moreover, it seemed that among the 8 people from 9 Dragons City, only Zhou had left the Vitality Tower alive. Feng Long, on the other hand, was most likely dead. Feng Gong. Extreme joy begets sorrow. Your 9 Dragons City is not much better than our Thunder Universe City. Didn't you also get eliminated? Pang Lei naturally wouldn't let go of this opportunity to ridicule Feng Gong and sneered. Feng Gong's complexion was gloomy. He didn't answer Pang Lei. He just stared straight at Zhou, who was coming towards the plaza. He wanted to know what had happened on the Sandstone Island. Whoosh! The Origin Chi Tower was not far from the Earth Stage Plaza, and Zhou soon arrived at the plaza. Her beautiful eyes scanned the plaza, and she immediately noticed Feng Gong at the center of the plaza, whose face was extremely gloomy. Slightly lowering her head, Zhou lightly stepped on the void and slowly arrived in front of Feng Gong. City Lord! Zhou, what the hell is going on? Why was our 9 Dragons City eliminated? Where is Feng Long? Where are the others? Suppressing the anger in his heart, Feng Gong asked in a low voice. At the same time, Xinghan and Pang Lei, who were standing beside Feng Gong, also looked at Zhou with interest. They also wanted to know the situation on the Sandstone Island. Although the result was already set, this result was already beyond their expectations. 9 Dragons City and Thunder Universe City, who were originally the most optimistic, were actually eliminated one after another. Instead, the inconspicuous Rattan Armor City lasted until the end. Originally, Pang Lei and the others could ask Pang Tong, but Pang Tong's injuries were too serious. After being teleported out of the Vitality Tower, he simply fainted, so now they could only ask Zhou. Big Brother Feng and the others are all dead. Zhou's lips were full of a bitter smile as she said with trembling lips, "Boom." Hearing this, Feng Gong only felt his mind go blank. His whole body froze on the spot. You? What did you say? Longer he's dead? Didn't Pang Tong say that Longer had a breakthrough in the Vitality Tower? How could he be dead? How could he be dead? Feng Gong's hands tightly grasped Zhou's shoulders as he roared with bloodshot eyes. Zhou only felt a piercing pain in her shoulders. Her long, shapely eyebrows slightly furrowed. She could only grit her teeth and say, "It should be that Zhuowen from Rattan Armor City who killed him. That Zhuowen is really too terrifying. Even if Big Brother Feng broke through to the Ultimate Emperor realm, he's still far from being a match for that Zhuowen." Rattan Armor City's Zhuowen? What a joke! How could a cultivator from a low-level city kill Feng Long? Zhou, are you hiding something? The Origin Chi Tower is fraught with danger. Presumably, Feng Long accidentally stepped into some trap and lost his life, right? Xinghan frowned, not believing Zhou's words. Feng Long was extremely powerful. When he was at the half-step Ultimate Emperor realm, his strength was comparable to an early Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator. If he broke through to the Ultimate Emperor realm, he would directly advance to the mid-Ultimate Emperor realm. His strength was not something that an ordinary Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator could kill. That Zhuowen was merely a cultivator from a low-level city. How could he possibly be a match for Feng Long? Zhou shook her head with a bitter smile when she heard this. She said, "You've all underestimated that Zhuowen. That fellow is simply a monster. His talent is not inferior to that of the geniuses of the 5 superpowers in the provincial capital." Back then, Zhuowen was only at the half-step Ultimate Emperor realm, but he was already comparable to a peak Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator. Even if Big Brother Feng broke through to the Ultimate Emperor realm, he still wasn't a match for that Zhuowen. Later on, that Zhuowen also underwent a heavenly tribulation on the Sandstone Island. His strength increased explosively by several times. Killing us was like slaughtering dogs to him. If the 3 city lords don't believe me, you can ask Pang Tong. Pang Tong has a rather good understanding of Zhuowen's strength. That fellow is ridiculously strong. Is it possible for a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator to possess the battle prowess of a peak Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator? I'm afraid that even the number 1 genius of the House of Marquis Qin, Lve Tao, wasn't as strong when he was at the half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm. When the 3 city lords heard this, their faces were filled with shock. If what Zhou said was true, then Zhuowen was simply too monstrous. What Zhou said is very possible. That Zhuowen is indeed very strong. If he had also broken through to the Ultimate Emperor Realm, his strength would only be greater than Feng Long's. A weak voice suddenly sounded. The 4 city lords looked towards the source of the voice and happened to see a pale-faced Pang Tong being supported by someone as he walked towards them. Since Pang Tong had said so, Xing Han and the others frowned slightly. They finally began to carefully size up Rattan Armor City. At the same time, they began to feel shocked. Since when had such a monstrous genius appeared in a low-level city? Rattan Armor City's Zhuowen, huh? Fengong will not let him off so easily after killing the people of my 9 Dragon City. Fengong's eyes were cold as he secretly remembered Zhuowen. He decided that after the battle for the Tower of Vitality was over, he would secretly get rid of that Zhuowen. He would not let Feng Long's death be in vain. Compared to the lifeless Earth-level plaza, the mortal-level plaza was extremely lively. Countless city lords in the plaza were staring at the 3 words Rattan Armor City on the screen with blazing eyes. They knew that this low-level city called Rattan Armor City had successfully advanced to the 2nd level of the Tower of Vitality. A genius from a low-level city has actually advanced to the 2nd level of the Tower of Vitality. How many years has it been since something like this has happened? It's been a very, very long time. I can't even remember how long it has been. I only remember that a long time ago, a genius from a low-level city defeated a genius from another city and successfully advanced to the 2nd level of the Tower of Vitality. I never thought that something like this would happen again today, haha. This Rattan Armor City has really brought honor to us low-level cities. To be able to seize control of the soaring island from a high-level cities team isn't that simple, but Rattan Armor City has done it. How satisfying! Chapter 420. Announcing, I've never heard of this Rattan Armor City before. Among the teams from Thunder Universe City and 9 Dragon City, who were both powerful advanced cities, it wasn't easy to seize control of the Sandstone Island. Rattan Armor City has really cultivated a true genius. All the city lords of the low-level cities in the Mortal Plaza were eagerly looking around the plaza. They really wanted to see who the city lord of Rattan Armor City was. After all, it had been many years since a genius from a low-level city had successfully advanced to the 2nd level of the Vitality Tower. Teng, Guyu Tian, Lu Nanfeng, and Qin Hua, who had been sitting together, suddenly stood up. They stared at the information on the screen in the sky, their faces full of disbelief. 9 Dragons City and Thunder Universe City were both eliminated? Only Rattan Armor City wasn't eliminated. Am I hallucinating? Guyu Tian rubbed his eyes and mumbled to himself as if he was sleep-talking. Brother Gu, this isn't a hallucination. This is real. Your Rattan Armor City obtained control of the last Ascension Island, the Sandstone Island. Moreover, it was an island with 4 teams from high-level cities. This is really amazing, Lu Nanfeng said excitedly. Even the taciturn Qin Hua was filled with excitement at this moment. Their low-level cities were the lowest-level existences in Muqin County. Regardless of whether it was middle-level, high-level, or super-level cities, None of them had ever taken a low-level city seriously because they all believed that low-level cities were so lowly that they could almost be ignored. However, today was different. Rattan Armor City, which was also a low-level city, had done it. It had done something that many mid-level and high-level cities might not necessarily be able to do. Moreover, it had eliminated Thunder Universe City and Nine Dragons City, which were ranked in the top 3 among high-level cities. It had to be said that this feat had brought honor to their low-level cities. Guyu Tian patted his cheeks and realized that this was real. He couldn't help but be overjoyed. It's real. It's actually real. Lu Nanfeng smiled and said, "It seems that the reason why Vine Armor City is able to achieve what it is today is all because of little friend Zhuowen." As expected, young friend Zhuowen isn't simple. An ordinary cultivator can't compare to a cultivator who was able to reach the ultimate Emperor realm on his own. After Pang Tong teleported out of the tower, he said that Feng Long of Nine Dragons City had broken through to the ultimate Emperor realm. In the end, it was Nine Dragons City that was eliminated. I'm afraid that little friend Zhuowen has broken through to the ultimate Emperor realm. Qin Hua's observation skills were clearly much sharper than the other two. Based on Pang Tong's words and the final result, he quickly deduced that it was very likely that Zhuowen had broken through to the ultimate Emperor realm. Brother Qin Hua is right. Little friend Zhuowen's talent is already amazing, and the energy inside the tower is much denser than outside. With little friend Zhuowen's talent, it's very normal for him to break through in the tower. Brother Gu, it looks like your Vine Armor City is about to soar. You have to know that a city with an ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator is basically a high-class city. Let me congratulate you first, Brother Gu. Lu Nanfeng's expression became even more fervent when she heard this. She knew that with a monstrous genius like Zhuowen in Vine Armor City, it was only a matter of time before it developed into a high-class city. Brother Lu, you flatter me. It's not that easy to establish a high-class city. Although Guyu Tian's words were modest, the smile on his face revealed his current mood. At the same time, he was very grateful to Zhuowen. He knew that if it weren't for Zhuowen, Vine Armor City would have been nothing more than cannon fodder in the tower. When the final result of the Sandstone Island came out, Lu Nantian waved his sleeve. The screen in the air flashed and dazzling lines of information appeared. These were the names of the cities that had successfully reached the second floor of the tower. There were close to 100 super cities, and all of them had successfully reached the second floor. 99% of the remaining cities were high-class cities, and there were only a dozen or so mid-class cities. These mid-class cities didn't encounter any powerful high-class cities on the first floor. Some of the islands they were on didn't even have a high-class city team. In this battle for the tower, only one low-class city had successfully reached the second floor, and that was Vine Armor City. It could be said that a low-class city like Vine Armor City was rather dazzling and unconventional among the many super and high-class cities. The first floor of the tower has ended. The results are all in the light screen. These teams were able to successfully reach the second floor among hundreds of thousands of competing forces. It can be said that they have both luck and strength. Lu Nanshan's voice was strong, and it echoed around the tower under the amplification of Yuan Qi. In the square, countless city lords stared at the information on the light screen with blazing eyes. To be able to stand out from hundreds of thousands of forces, the 1,000 teams were no pushovers. Presumably, the competition on the second floor of the tower would be even more intense and exciting than the first floor. This year's battle for the tower is probably much more prosperous than before. Not only are there many more mid-class city teams reaching the second floor, but there's even a low-class city team that suddenly made it to the second floor. I really have to say that the quality of this year's battle for the tower is much better than before. Actually, what I'm most concerned about is how many floors Vine Armor City can reach. This is the first low-class city to successfully reach the second floor since the beginning of the battle for the tower. I'm extremely curious about this team. You're thinking too much, aren't you? The second floor of the tower is even harsher. It's said that out of the 1,000 teams that entered the second floor, only 100 teams can successfully reach the third floor. The remaining 90% are basically eliminated. It can be said that the second floor is even more cruel than the first floor. Hiss. The elimination rate is really high. The super cities, the 5 major factions of the prefecture capital, and some extremely powerful forces, I'm afraid there's already more than 100 teams. With such intense competition, I'm afraid even the strongest high-class cities would find it extremely difficult to qualify. Vine Armor City is indeed not bad, but it's still as difficult as ascending to the third floor. In the plaza, many teams that had been eliminated didn't immediately leave the plaza. Instead, they stood in the plaza in high spirits and observed the information on the light screen. The battle for the tower was a grand event that happened once in 100 years. They naturally wouldn't leave so quickly. Of course, they wanted to properly see the geniuses of this year's battle for the tower. Since Vine Armor City was the first low-class city in history to successfully reach the second floor of the tower, it could be said that it was extremely popular in the plaza. Many people couldn't help but bring the topic of conversation to Vine Armor City. Sure enough, gold shines wherever it is. Even though little friend Zhuowen only led a team from a low-class city, he was still able to smoothly reach the second floor of the tower. This old man misjudged back then. I thought little friend Zhuowen would have a hard time achieving anything in the tower with the pitiful foundation of Vine Armor City. In the Sky Plaza, the city lord of Broken Rock City, Ouyang Yuntu, stared straight at the light screen as he shook his head and sighed. That little fellow Zhuowen is unfathomable. Even this old man sometimes has a hard time seeing through his depth. Actually, from the beginning, this old man felt that Zhuowen would definitely have an extremely good performance in the battle for the tower. Now, this result shows that this old man's judgment was right. Chiu Cho was in a good mood as he laughed loudly. Back then, Chiu Cho had greatly admired Zhuowen and even took the initiative to help Zhuowen time and time again. It was precisely because of Zhuowen's terrifying talent. What a pity! If Zhuowen was from our Broken Rock City, that would be great. Perhaps our Broken Rock City could nurture a genius that isn't any weaker than the 5 superpowers. Ouyang Yuntu said with some regret. Zhuowen's talent made him very envious. If he was born in his Broken Rock City as the city lord, he would definitely do his best to nurture him. It wasn't impossible for him to nurture a genius comparable to the 5 superpowers' younger generation. However, this was only his wishful thinking. Yuntu. Nothing can be forced. If this little fellow Zhuowen continues to develop like this, he will definitely be one of the strongest in the Qing Xian Empire in the future. Building a good relationship with him now will be extremely beneficial for the future development of our Broken Rock City. Chiu Cho shook his head and smiled. That's true. After all, little friend Zhuowen is a member of our Broken Rock City's Arcane Guild. Speaking of which, he is also a member of our Broken Rock City. Ouyang Yuntu said with a slight curl of his lip. On the high platform, Lu Nantian straightened his back and stepped forward. He swept his gaze over the crowd below and said loudly, "Since the first level of the Tower of Vitality has ended, the second level is about to begin. Representatives of the 1,000 cities that have already advanced, please step forward." After Lu Nantian finished speaking, everyone in the Heaven Stage Plaza turned into shadows and neatly ascended the high platform. Obviously, all the teams from the super cities had successfully advanced. There were quite a lot of people in the Earth Stage Plaza as well. Roughly half of the people had made their way up to the high platform. As for Nine Dragons City's Feng Gong and Thunder Universe City's Pang Lei, they could only grimace as they watched the city lords walk past them. There were even fewer people in the Mortal Stage Plaza, only a dozen or so figures. However, these dozen or so figures were like stars surrounding the moon. Under the respectful and envious gazes of many mid-level city lords in the mortal stage plaza, they slowly ascended the high platform. After all, these dozen or so mid-level cities were able to advance to the second level of the Tower of Vitality, which could be considered as gaining face for their mid-level cities. Finally, there was the mortal stage plaza. Among the four major plazas, there was no doubt that the mortal stage plaza had the most people. At a glance, there were more than 100,000 people densely packed in the plaza. At this time, with so many plazas, it should be extremely noisy, but at this time, it was dead silent. It was eerily silent. Everyone automatically opened up a path. They all wanted to see what the city lord of Rattan Armor City looked like. Even the city lords of the other three plazas could not help but focus their gazes on the mortal stage plaza. Their eyes were filled with curiosity and interest. Chapter 421. On the stage on the high platform, the gazes of the five magnates were all focused on Guyu Tian, who was slowly walking out from the mortal stage plaza. Their eyes were originally filled with anticipation, but when they saw Guyu Tian, the light in their eyes instantly dimmed. He's only at the great circle of the Earth King stage. The cultivation of this Rattan Armor City's city lord is a little weak. Lu Nantian frowned and muttered. Originally, he thought that the city lord of Rattan Armor City, who was able to cultivate a genius like Zhuowen, would definitely not be weak. Even if he was weak, he should at least be at the Heavenly King stage or the Ultimate Emperor stage. However, he never thought that Guyu Tian was only at the great circle of the Earth King stage. The other four magnates' expressions were similar to Lu Nantian's. Obviously, Guyu Tian's cultivation had exceeded their expectations. Guyu Tian appeared extremely restrained in the face of the countless gazes around him. Even his movements were a little hesitant, and he even trembled slightly as he walked. After all, the city lords on the high platform were all very powerful, and even the weakest among them was a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. As for him, a mere Earth King stage cultivator, standing next to so many powerful experts, anyone would feel nervous. Guyu Tian's extremely restrained and even fearful behavior was naturally seen by the city lords on the high platform. Immediately, the city lords revealed looks of contempt because Guyu Tian's behavior was like a country bumpkin who had just arrived at the city. This Rattan Armor City's city lord is so weak. I really don't know how the Rattan Armor City team in the Origin Chi Tower eliminated 9 Dragons City and Thunder Universe City. Maybe Rattan Armor City is just lucky. After all, Thunder Universe City and 9 Dragons City's strength are on par. If the two sides fought, it was very likely that both sides would suffer. I'm afraid that Rattan Armor City's team was lucky and picked up a big bargain. Many people in the plaza began to talk about Guyu Tian. Many people had mocking expressions on their faces towards Guyu Tian's stage fright. Even many of the city lords in the mundane plaza had a trace of doubt on their faces. Among them, the ones with the most displeased expressions were 9 Dragons City's Feng Gong and Thunder Universe City's Pang Lei. To think that a team from one of the top 3 advanced cities would actually lose to a team from Rattan Armor City, which was under the command of a country bumpkin. Naturally, this did not feel good. After climbing up the platform with great difficulty, Guyu Tian awkwardly realized that all the good spots on the platform had been taken by other people. Helpless, Guyu Tian could only stand on the edge of the platform and tiptoe. Guyu Tian felt his cheeks burning when he sensed the mocking gazes from all around him. However, he didn't dare to make a sound. After all, his aura was undoubtedly the weakest on the high platform. Anyone on the high platform could easily kill him. Haha. Brother Gu, there's no need to be so reserved. We have a lot of space here. Come over here. Just as Guyu Tian was in a dilemma, a rather hearty laugh suddenly rang out. Soon after, a black-robed Xiao Cho led Ouyang Yuntu to Guyu Tian's side. His face was filled with a courteous smile. Isn't this the #1 expert of Broken Rock City, Xiao Cho? Behind him is Broken Rock City's City Lord, Ouyang Yuntu. Both of them are extremely powerful Ultimate Emperor Realm experts, especially Chiu Cho. It's said that he's already breaking through to the 5th wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm. He can be considered a top expert in Muqin County. Looking at Chiu Cho and Ouyang Yuntu's expressions, they seem to know Gu Yutian. Moreover, they seem to be very polite. Could it be that Rattan Armor City's Gu Yutian is deliberately hiding his cultivation? It doesn't look like it. This Gu Yutian's behavior is completely that of a low-level city lord. He's just like a country bumpkin. It's truly unexpected that he's actually acquainted with these two experts of Broken Rock City. Chiu Cho and Ouyang Yuntu personally came to welcome Gu Yutian, which immediately caused quite a commotion. After all, Chiu Cho and Ouyang Yuntu were famous experts of Muqin County. Being able to make these two act so courteously was definitely not the treatment of an ordinary person. Who are these two lords? From the surrounding discussions, Gu Yutian knew that the two people before him were not ordinary. They might even be experts of a super city. Naturally, he didn't dare to slight them and hurriedly bowed. However, Gu Yutian was puzzled. He was clearly a nobody. He didn't know Chiu Cho and Ouyang Yuntu. Moreover, these two seemed to be of noble status. Why were they being so courteous to him? Could it be that Zhuowen is acquainted with these two lords? So these two love the house and its crow, and have become so courteous to me? Gu Yutian suddenly thought of a possibility and secretly thought to himself. Haha, looks like that little guy Zhuowen didn't mention us to you. Fine, I'll reintroduce myself. I'm Chiu Cho of Broken Rock City. And this person beside me is the City Lord of Broken Rock City, Ouyang Yuntu. Back when little friend Zhuowen was in Broken Rock City, he helped us a lot. Even the cold poison in my body was expelled by little friend Zhuowen. It can be said that we owe little friend Zhuowen a lot of favors, Chiu Cho said with a smile. Hearing this, Gu Yutian's heart was filled with complicated emotions. After listening to Chiu Cho's introduction, how could he not know the identities of the two people in front of him? One was the #1 expert of Broken Rock City, and the other was the City Lord of Broken Rock City. They were both famous experts in Muqin County. From their words, it seemed that they owed Zhuowen a lot of favors. This Zhuowen is becoming more and more difficult to see through. He was actually able to obtain the favor of these two experts. Gu Yutian thought with complicated emotions. Haha, if Lord Gu doesn't mind, please stand with us. In a moment, Marquis Lu will use a secret technique to send us all into the Origin Chi Tower. Chiu Cho straightforwardly patted Gu Yutian's shoulder and pulled him to a spacious area in the middle of the high platform. Chiu Cho's enthusiastic performance made many people's jaws drop. Their disdainful attitude towards Gu Yutian suddenly became unfathomable. As the #1 expert of Broken Rock City, Chiu Cho's cultivation had reached the peak of the ultimate 4-wheel emperor realm. He was one of the top experts in many super cities. Furthermore, he was unconventional and unrestrained. He was an expert that caused people to change their expressions upon hearing his name. Many people didn't dare to offend him. However, such an expert was actually so enthusiastic, which naturally caused many people to raise their eyebrows. As for the main character, Gu Yutian, he was like a sparrow that had transformed into a phoenix. He became somewhat mysterious in the eyes of the crowd. In the middle of the high platform, Lu Nantian looked at the enthusiastic Chiu Cho and the reserved Gu Yutian in astonishment. His face revealed a trace of contemplation. Since the 1,000 city lords are all here, then follow me to the 2nd level of the Origin Chi Tower. This marquee won't keep you guessing for the 2nd level of the Origin Chi Tower. It will be an elimination round. In the 2nd level of the Origin Chi Tower, there is a huge trial mountain. The 2nd level of the Origin Chi Tower's elimination round will be held in that trial mountain. As for the specifics, it won't be too late to talk about it after everyone enters the second level of the Origin Chi Tower. Lu Nanshan's voice was calm as he swept his gaze across the city lords on the high platform. With a wave of his sleeve, a ring-shaped golden circle enveloped the high platform. In an instant, the entire high platform disappeared. At the same time, a huge mountain range appeared in the light screen. This mountain range was the trial mountain of the Origin Chi Tower's second level. What a pity! We can't enter the Origin Chi Tower to watch the competition in the second level of the Origin Chi Tower up close. Your thoughts are pretty good. Only 1,000 people can enter the second level of the Origin Chi Tower. If your city had such strength, then I'm afraid that Marquis Lu would have already brought you to the second level of the Origin Chi Tower. Actually, it's the same if you watch it on the light screen. Looking at the high platform that disappeared, many cultivators in the square felt somewhat envious and regretful. On the Sandstone Island, inside the sacred hall of the Parthenon Temple in the Holy City, it was currently filled with extremely dense Origin Chi. If someone were to lightly brush their hand, they might be able to directly liquefy this dense Origin Chi. Boom! A storm-like ripple suddenly filled the entire sacred hall. Under the ripple, all the energy in the hall actually liquefied, turning into droplets of liquefied origin energy that dripped down. Whoosh! A figure that looked like an old monk sitting cross-legged slowly opened his eyes. Soon after, he stood up, his eyes filled with joy. Brother Gu, congratulations on successfully breaking through to the half-step Ultimate Emperor realm. Before the figure could recover from his joy, a clear voice came from the center of the sacred hall. A young man with black hair and black eyes was sitting cross-legged in the center of the sacred hall. Countless small vortexes revolved around the young man's body. Waves of dense Origin Chi were gushing out from the depths of these vortexes. Brother Zhuowen, I really have to thank you this time. If it wasn't for you, I, Gu Xian, wouldn't have broken through to the half-step Ultimate Emperor realm so quickly. Gu Xian hurriedly arrived in front of Zhuowen, her face filled with deep reverence. Brother Gu, there's no need to be so polite. We're a team, helping you is actually helping myself. After all, the competition on the second level of the Origin Chi Tower will only get more intense. If you're too weak, I'm afraid that it'll be very difficult for you to advance to the third level. Zhuowen opened his eyes and smiled. I wonder how Wu Ying is doing? Nodding, Gu Xian looked at another figure sitting cross-legged in the sacred hall with a trace of worry on her face. Don't worry, Brother Gu, Wu Ying is about to break through. He's advancing very quickly. In the beginning, his cultivation level was lower than yours, but now he's about to break through to the half-step Ultimate Emperor realm. Look, Wu Ying is about to break through. With that, Zhuowen's eyes focused and a trace of a smile appeared on his face. At this moment, the aura inside Wu Ying's body suddenly became extremely powerful. Boundless Origin Chi surrounded Wu Ying like mist. Boom! Chapter 422. Breakthrough to the second wheel of the Ultimate Emperor realm. I've broken through? Wu Ying's face was filled with shock as he felt the surging energy in his body. Brother Zhua, it's all because of you that I, Wu Ying, am able to achieve what I have today. In the future, Brother Zhua, if you have any requests, I, Wu Ying, will do anything for you. Wu Ying suddenly knelt on one knee before Zhuo with a solemn expression. He knew that with his talent, it would have been impossible for him to reach the half-step Ultimate Emperor realm without at least a few years. However, with Zhuo's help, that time had been shortened countless times. This debt of gratitude was too great. Brother Hu, there's no need to be so courteous. Since we're all members of Vine Armor City, we naturally have to help each other. Besides, I'm now the controller of the Sandstone Island. Purifying the Yuan Qi is as easy as lifting a finger. You've reached the half-step Ultimate Emperor realm because of yourselves, Zhuo said with a faint smile as he waved his right hand and poured out Yuan Qi to stabilize Wu Ying's body. In reality, Zhua had benefited a lot more than Gu Xian and Hu Wuying in the past month. In the process of purifying the Yuan Qi, Zhua had discovered that the Yuan Qi on the Sandstone Island contained an extremely strange energy. This energy could actually increase the vitality of the purple and black heart in the right side of his chest, making it even stronger. Zhua's current recovery ability was probably 50% stronger than it had been a month ago. Even if there was a large hole in his chest, he could completely recover in a few breaths of time. Both of you have reached the half-step Ultimate Emperor realm. With the addition of the left and right combination secret technique, your strength will increase to an extremely terrifying level. I'm afraid that even an Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator won't be able to easily defeat the two of you if you work together. Zhua nodded, clearly satisfied with their strength. Now, the two of us will no longer be a burden to Brother Zhua. Gu Xian and Hu Wuying looked at each other and smiled. Zhuowen nodded. Now, Gu Xian and Hu Wuying's strength was indeed helpful to him, but it was still far from enough. After all, he might have to face the geniuses from the super cities, and the strength and background of those geniuses were not any weaker than Nine Dragons City. Therefore, their current lineup was far from enough. Thinking of this, Zhuowen took out a palm-sized transparent ball from his Qiankuan bag. This transparent ball was the elemental energy ball that Zhuowen had obtained from the training ground. Since a month ago, Zhuowen had been refining the pure elemental energy within the elemental energy ball while refining his elemental energy. It had to be said that the elemental energy within the elemental energy ball had exceeded Zhuowen's expectations. An endless stream of elemental energy entered his body and directly transformed into the energy of the world. After an entire month of absorption, Zhuowen had finally absorbed almost all of the pure elemental energy within the elemental energy ball. At this moment, the elemental energy ball was as sparkling and translucent as a glass ball, with only a small amount of milky white mist surging within. This was a sign that the elemental energy ball was about to dry up. The elemental energy ball has been completely used up. I'm afraid it's time for a breakthrough. Zhuowen muttered softly as he lowered his head to look at the elemental energy ball in his hand. Gu Xian and Hu Wuying's pupils shrank when they heard this. Gu Xian stuttered, "Brother Zhua, you're about to break through to the Ultimate Emperor realm?" They still remembered that Zhuowen had only advanced to the Ultimate Emperor realm a little over a month ago. Was he about to break through again in such a short time? Wasn't this a little too fast? Zhuowen nodded slightly. Back then, he'd stayed at the half-step Ultimate Emperor realm for an extremely long time. It could be said that he'd accumulated a lot of energy before breaking through to the Ultimate Emperor realm. He directly reached the peak of the Ultimate Emperor realm in one go. Moreover, he had a supreme treasure like the elemental energy ball in his hand. The surging and pure elemental energy within the elemental energy ball was comparable to several years of cultivation for an ordinary cultivator. After absorbing the elemental energy within the elemental energy ball, the energy within Zhuowen's body had almost reached its peak. It was only logical that he would break through to the Ultimate Emperor realm. I can sense that my second tribulation of the heavens and the earth is about to arrive. So long as I overcome the second tribulation of the heavens and the earth, I'll be able to smoothly break through to the second wheel of the Ultimate Emperor realm. Once a cultivator reached the Ultimate Emperor realm, they would be plagued with calamities. This was especially true for the Ultimate Emperor realm. Every time a cultivator advanced a minor realm, the heavens and earth would send down a heavenly tribulation. From the first to the 9th heavenly tribulation, the cultivator's strength would increase exponentially. Therefore, the gap between each heavenly tribulation was extremely large. This was also one of the reasons why Ultimate Emperor realm cultivators advanced so slowly. After receiving Zhuowen's confirmation, Gu Xian and Hu Wuying's hearts trembled. A trace of a bitter smile immediately appeared on their faces. Seeing Zhuowen's monstrous improvement, The joy they'd felt when they'd just broken through to the half-step ultimate Emperor realm instantly faded. Brother Joie, the second heavenly tribulation is probably even more terrifying than the first. You must be careful. We'll protect you. Gu Xian and Hu Wuying immediately said solemnly. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. As for protecting you, you don't have to. The heavenly tribulation isn't something you can resist. If you're not careful, you might die. Zhuowen shook his head. He patted his Qianquan bag with his right hand, and a sturdy figure appeared beside him. This is a puppet? Gu Xian asked doubtfully when he saw the middle-aged spirit reverse puppet. This is a spirit reverse puppet. Its strength is comparable to a first-wheel ultimate Emperor realm cultivator. Its body is so tough that even a second-wheel ultimate Emperor realm cultivator might not be able to break through it. With the spirit reverse puppet by my side, you don't have to worry. In order to prevent the heavenly tribulation from affecting you, I think you should leave the Parthenon temple. I'm about to undergo my tribulation, Zhuowen said seriously after casually introducing the spirit reverse puppet. Gu Xian and Hu Wuying smiled bitterly and shook their heads when they heard that the big guy in front of them was comparable to a first-wheel ultimate Emperor realm cultivator. After reaching the half-step ultimate Emperor realm, they once again discovered that the gap between them and Zhuowen hadn't narrowed at all. Instead, it was widening. Even a random puppet that he had created was so much stronger than the two of them. Gu Xian and Hu Wuying cupped their fists and left the sacred hall. Zhuowen was the only one left in the spacious sacred hall. A second-wheel ultimate Emperor realm cultivator. Once I reach the second-wheel ultimate Emperor realm, I won't have to fear LV Yongxing anymore. Although I'm still no match for LV Yongxing, I should be able to escape unscathed from him. Zhuowen sat down on the ground and closed his eyes. At the same time, a powerful aura surged out of his body. It was like a dam had burst, filling the entire sacred hall. At this moment, terrifying dark clouds began to gather in the sky above the sacred city. It was as if a wild beast was standing in the sky, blotting out the sun. In an instant, the sacred city, which was originally bright and sunny, became dim and dark. What's going on? Why did the sky suddenly turn dark? Look, there are so many dark clouds above the sacred city. How strange, our sandstone island has a hot climate, and it rarely rains. We've never had such strange weather in thousands of years. What's going on? Inside the sacred city, countless members of the lost tribe raised their heads and looked at the gray clouds in the sky. Their hearts were filled with confusion and fear. What's going on? Saintess Alice, Ottos, and the others who were gathered outside the Parthenon temple were confused too. Bang! A red lightning bolt as thick as a bucket descended from the dark clouds and struck the top of the Parthenon temple. Ottos, Alice, and the others were shocked to see the enormous Parthenon temple tremble violently under the effect of the red lightning. Bang! The magnificent Parthenon temple suddenly collapsed. Countless rocks fell from the surface of the temple. The place where the temple stood was instantly turned into ruins. Dust filled the air and obscured everyone's vision. The Parthenon temple has been destroyed. This. Alice seemed to have lost her soul when she saw the ruins of the Parthenon temple. Bang! Another bolt of lightning that was even more powerful shot down from the depths of the dark clouds and struck the ruins. It actually created a huge pit in the ruins. The aftershock of the lightning spread out, immediately forcing Ottos and the others to take over a dozen steps back involuntarily. Such a powerful lightning bolt. Just a single lightning bolt was enough to destroy the temple. How terrifying! Otto's eyes widened. He stared at the ruins of the temple in astonishment. He might be a golden warrior, and his flesh was incredibly tough, but he would have died for sure if he had been struck by the lightning bolt. Nice. Again, what's the point of a single lightning bolt? Let's have a few more. A clear voice whizzed out from the depths of the ruins. Soon after, Ottos's pupils shrank because he saw a black-haired, black-eyed young man with a blood-colored spear on his back slowly walk out from the ruins. The young man's feet suddenly stomped on the ground, and he directly floated in the air. He raised his head slightly, and his face was filled with arrogance. "Is that Zhuowen?" Under the bombardment of the lightning just now, this guy actually looked like nothing had happened. The strength of his physical body is a bit too abnormal. Otto's was a little dumbfounded as he looked at the unscathed youth in the sky. For the first time, he felt how powerful the power contained in the body of this seemingly thin and weak youth was. Bang bang! At the same time, in the black dragon-like dark clouds high up in the sky, countless bolts of lightning were like pythons, twisting and turning within the dark clouds. It looked extremely terrifying. With 2 loud claps of thunder, another 2 bolts of lightning as thick as buckets came crashing down, directly striking Zhuowen's body. In the distance, Zhuowen made a grabbing motion in the air with his right hand and actually grabbed the 2 extremely frightening lightning bolts with his bare hand. He even casually waved them around in his palm, as if they were toys. Soon after, he clenched his fist and directly annihilated the 2 lightning bolts. This guy caught the lightning with his bare hands and acted like nothing happened. He's even playing with them as if they were toys. What kind of freak is this guy? Even a legendary warrior wouldn't be able to catch lightning with his bare hands like this guy, right? Otto's muttered to himself as his lips trembled. He looked as if he had seen a ghost. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.